Buried Hearts, Book 2, Chapter 1, The Tide Takes and Tells. The cove breathed in the darkness, the sea stroking the shingle with a hush-hush whisper that never quite settled. Emma pressed her back to the cold rock, the weathered box clutched to her chest. Outside the cleft, the alley of cliffs funneled sound. Heavy boots scattering pebbles, a grunt, the thud of bodies, the far-off wail of sirens thrown thin by the wind.
Keep low.
His silhouette staggered into view, shoulders heaving, a smear of blood like rust at the corner of his lip. Martha slipped in after him, small and wren-like, eyes wide with a lifetime's worth of fear. They'll be back. They always come back.
The diary. Martha, there's no time. Help me open it.
The box was old oak gone soft with damp iron hasp seized by salt. Aidan braced it against the rock and wrenched. The hasp gave with a crack that sounded too loud in the cove. Inside lay an oilskin parcel, and tucked beside it, a ribbon bundle of photographs, their edges scalloped and silvering with age.
Lillian.
The face that looked up from the topmost photograph was all cheekbones and mischief, a woman caught mid-laugh in the stubborn Cornish sun. She stood with two others in front of a low stone wall. No names, just a year, handwritten on the back in a bold, looping hand. 1962. Read. Emma peeled open the oilskin. A little book fell into her hands. Black cloth, threadbare spine. On the flyleaf, the same looping hand. Lillian Trevelyan. The first pages were blank. She turned one, then another. Blank, faint ghostings of graphite, and nothing more. There's nothing. The locket. Emma's fingers found the cold weight at her throat. She popped the tiny catch. Inside, instead of a portrait, the locket carried a lens, no bigger than a raindrop set in the inner hinge. Not glass, some milky crystal, delicately etched.
Try it.
Emma lowered the locket over the paper. Letters bled into view like ink returning to a vein, line after line crawling from the pale like something woken. Invisible ink, coaxed by the lens, shaped into a message that made her skin pebble. She read aloud, barely above the tide.
If the sea has not taken me, I have hidden what matters where it still tells the truth. Ask for the low tide passage. Do not trust crests and promises. If you are not me, be braver than I was.
Low tide passage, God help us. Where? Under Trevelyan Point, old cave, Smuggler's Cut. It shows itself twice a day, if you know where to look. The sirens swung closer, the valley of dark cliff faces throwing echoes back at them in blue pulses they couldn't see. A torch beam scratched across the mouth of the cove and was gone. Aidan's shoulders boxed the light aside.
We can argue about caves later. We need to move.
No, we move with this. She slid the diary back into the oilskin and the oilskin into her jacket, the photographs next, then palmed the locket shut and tucked it into her collar. Her heartbeat kept time with the sea.
They'll search the cottage, they'll search me.
Then you're not going home, not yet. They crabbed along the rock face to where the cleft twisted inland. There was a snick of shoe on stone behind them and a breath of cold air that wasn't the wind.
Stop.
The voice came from the shadow they'd just passed, one of the men from the alley, his silhouette broad and patient as if he'd simply let them come to him. Another wedge of light blinked to life beyond him. Second man, second beam.
Hands where we can see 'em.
We've called the police. So have we.
Boots scuffed at the cove mouth. A different light strobed off wet stone, blue reflected in clotted puddles. A woman's voice, cool and clipped, cut across the restless water.
Devon and Cornwall police. Everyone keep still.
The two enforcers didn't bolt. They turned their torches off with polite little clicks, as if they'd merely been wayfinders escorting lost walkers. The woman who owned the voice stepped into the cleft, a dark coat flaring at her calves, a badge glinting.
I'm Detective Inspector Elwyn Price. Anyone injured? I'm fine.
We found something.
And someone tried to take it.
Names.
Aidan Merrick.
Emma Whitaker. Martha Kellen. And you two.
Local security. The Trevelyan estate requested we check on a disturbance regarding private property. In a public cove.
You'll provide identification. They did, politely, with laminated passes and the stiff confidence of men who rarely heard no. D.I. Price didn't contradict them. She merely filed the details behind her eyes and gestured toward the cove's throat.
You said you found something.
Which is why their bosses want it back.
That's a curious way to tell me you're holding potential evidence. It's Lillian Trevelyan's diary.
For a heartbeat, something shifted in the detective's face, a ripple across still water. That name prompts lawyers like gulls to chips. Hand it to me, please. No, if it goes to them.
It goes to an evidence locker, Mrs. Kellen. Chain of custody. If it's what you say, it will matter more because we do this properly.
Emma looked at Aidan. The look he gave back was a catalogue of risks. If the Trevelyans had a way into the station, if the diary vanished, if they were muzzled, on record.
I'm handing it to you, Inspector, but I'm staying with it.
That isn't how it works.
Then charge me.
The cove waited. Far out, a buoy tolled once, a hollow note rolling through the black. Walk with me, we'll do this in the open. They filed toward the mouth, the estate men bracketed by uniforms now appearing at the lip of the cove, yellow jackets ghostly in the wash of blue light. Emma felt the weight of the oilskin under her jacket like a second heart.
Miss Whitaker, you're not local.
No.
Merrick, historian.
Of a sort. And you've lived here how long, Mrs. Kellen?
Long enough to know when the past bites.
A figure stood above on the path, collar turned up against the wind, lit from below by a phone's cold rectangle. He didn't come down. He didn't need to. His presence reached the beach like weather.
Inspector Price.
She didn't turn toward him, but the smallest muscle in her jaw made itself known.
Mr. Trevelyan? Which one?
I do hope you're not about to deprive me of family property.
I'm about to take possession of potential evidence. If you have a claim, the usual route applies.
The usual route bores me. Might we resolve it as neighbors?
Did Lillian look like a neighbor to you? Miss Whitaker.
The tide nudged higher, impatient as a dog at a door. Di Price held out her hand. Emma pulled the oilskin from her jacket, the diary snug against her palm like a living thing. She didn't give it over yet.
Lillian's entry mentions a place, the low tide passage.
You could feel the words settle on the cove like ash.
Old folklore dangerous to the unwary.
If you want proof this is real, let us show you. The diary isn't a trinket. It leads somewhere.
And you already intended to go.
Yes.
Price glanced at her constables, at the estate men who had perfected the art of looking nonchalant, at the man on the path whose presence would write tomorrow's phone calls. Then she made a choice.
PC Redfern, take Mr. Trevelyan's details and keep him off the beach. PC Ames, log receipt of an item, oilskin parcel containing a book. Miss Whitaker, you'll place the parcel into the bag and keep your hands visible. Mr. Merrick, you're not to leave my sight. Mrs. Kellen, if you feel unwell, say so. We're taking a short walk at the waterline.
A midnight constitutional.
You're welcome to remain where you are.
Evidence bag crackle. Emma slid the oilskin inside, jaw tight. Price sealed it, wrote, signed, handed to her constable with a nod that meant, don't blink. Then the detective stepped ahead, boots sinking slightly, beam raking the stones until the rocks sloped down into a band of weed-slick ledge.
There.
As the tide drew its breath, a darker seam showed beneath the undercut lip of the headland, a black mouth no wider than a coffin lid, water slipping from it like spit between teeth.
Low tide passage.
Width?
Tight, but passable, if we go side-on. It opens after 10 feet if the old stories are true.
You've done this before.
Never.
Then don't lead. Boot by boot they edged along the algae glass, hands to the rock. A constable stayed with the bag and radio, as tether, as witness. Behind them, the estate men watched from just out of the pool of police light, impassive, as if observing theater.
Mind the swell.
The mouth took them in. The world turned to salt breath and stone. The floor was ribbed, the ceiling low enough to force their shoulders forward. The torch beam turned to milk in aerosolized spray. For a few seconds there was only the grunt and hitch of careful movement, and the soft complaint of wet leather.
What if it's blocked?
Then we reversed slow.
Wait.
The rock under Martha's palm felt different. A runnel where fingers had worn a groove. A ring of carved lines like teeth around a shallow recess. A lid once, now missing. Emma raised the locket, felt its tiny lens catch the torch's spill, and for a blink, some pattern on the stone seemed to brighten, as if the crystal carried an old friend's memory of light. She marked it. Move, don't linger in apertures. The crawl thawed into a pocket of air and height, the passage bellying out, the ceiling higher, the floor more level. The tide filled and emptied somewhere beyond the walls, making the chamber's skin vibrate.
There.
A metal cabinet was half sunk in calcified rock, its paint blistered ocean green. No padlock, just a rotary latch set with a familiar crest, a rampant lion crowned. The same crest was on the estate men's badges, the same crest winked from wax on the back of an old photograph Emma had only just seen.
Crests and promises.
The diary's warning thudded inside her. She slid the locket's lens across the dial by instinct. The etched crystal picked out faint numbers around the rim, almost erased by time.
Try 3 steps, 61-2. Why?
The year on the photo. The number on the back of the second print.
She tried his sequence. The latch offered a reluctant give, then turned.
Oh!
Inside, thick plastic sleeves stacked like fish scales, each holding strips of film, some newspaper clippings gone foxed, a small tin of something dense and dark, and laid on top, a folded sheet that made Emma's stomach plunge. The Trevelyan crest stamped in red wax, broken long ago, the paper addressed in Lillian's looping hand, for the one who listens.
She left this.
Don't touch anything else.
From the seaward side of the chamber came a different sound, a flat slap and a strangled exhalation not made by water. Help! Someone's...
Stay back.
Price swung her torch toward a lower slot, where the chamber's edge leaned into an unseen void. The beam caught a hand, white, clawing around stone, and a face beneath it, half submerged, eyes wild in the bright. The tide lifted him, dropped him, lifted, dropped.
Please.
He'll drown on the next set.
Rope? Aidan shed his coat and was belly down in spray before the rope arrived, reaching through the slot where the current punched hard. Emma flattened beside him, palms burning on barnacled stone, body braced against his hip to anchor him while D.I. Price fed line.
Take his wrist.
Got him. The wave made the chamber breathe. The man's head vanished, came up, spit and foam, and a cut that pulsed bright on his temple. Together they hauled. The man came in like a landed thing, coughing seawater, clutching at the rock with a child's panic.
Name.
Finn Robbie. Boatman. Who put you in here, Mr. Roby? I didn't see, just hands, bag over. No light. Said I knew too much about the pictures.
The words cut through Emma like cold steel. Pictures. The film. Lillian had hidden pictures. Someone was still shoving people into tide holes over them.
We have to get him out and then seal this. If they know.
A sound tripped down the passage behind them, stones skittering. Not the sea, not the police, the kind of pebble song a careful foot makes when it tries not to sing at all.
We weren't followed. Constable?
The reply bled and ragged. Inspector? We've got a Mr. Trevelyan, as he says. He's coming down, says he has a right.
Inspector Price, are you quite safe in there?
His voice arrived first. Then the white ellipse of a phone flashlight peeled along the low ceiling of the passage and painted a slow, proprietary arc across their faces. The beam paused on the open cabinet. It paused on the diary sealed in the evidence sack by the entrance. It paused last on Finn, salt-bloodied and shaking, and seemed to smile without a mouth.
Careful, tides turn quickly in these parts. Chapter 2, The Trevelyan Shadow.
Julian Trevelyan's phone beam prowled the chamber like a thin-toothed predator, glancing off wet rock, off Emma's cheekbone, off the open metal cabinet set into the calcified wall. Behind him, boots rasped on stone. 2 men, maybe 3, moving with the confident hush of people who believed walls would always lean their way. Inspector Price, you've brought quite the audience. A historian, a divorcee with a hobby, a village relic, and a half-drowned boatman, a chorus for Lillian's tragedy.
She wasn't a tragedy, she was silenced.
Julian's light steadied on Emma as if pinning a moth. The smile in his voice was small and practiced.
And here you are, trying to give her a second act, noble, inconvenient.
Mr. Trevelyan, step back. This is a crime scene. My officers will escort you out.
There was a little laugh in the stone behind him. The boots didn't retreat. Aidan shifted beside Emma, all wire and readiness. Martha pressed a hand to the wall like it might steady the earth. The rescued man, Finn Roby, coughed seawater, eyes flitting to the film sleeves stacked inside the cabinet.
The pictures. Don't let them take the pictures. That's what they want.
They'll kill us all for those.
Not here, not with them watching.
Trevelyan, last warning.
Inspector, do you believe your crown will thank you for unearthing bones we spent decades burying? Which court will take your hand when you name my family?
The question wasn't a question. It was a statement of habit. Emma's jaw tightened, her breath saw-edged with smoke, brine, anger.
You buried Lillian. You won't bury me.
The echo clung to the rock. Julian's light slid away from her face at last, as if the shape of her refusal disinterested him. Then the rhythm shifted, A glug from metal, a scratch of wheel on flint, the sulfuric snipe of a lighter. Petrol.
Put that down, Ames Redfern. Get that can.
Fire didn't ask permission. It raced across the film damp, licking into algae and the old oil of 100 tide-brought things. A hard exhalation of orange gusted along the chamber floor. Smoke bit low and mean, driving them to their knees. We can't go back.
Slot.
Move, Merrick, take the casualty. Miss Whitaker, stay with me. Mrs. Kellen, hold my sleeve. The second slot yawned tight and black where the chamber bellied into rock. Water pumped through it in cold bursts like a heart too fast to count. Aidan shoved the sealed evidence bag against his ribs, hooked an arm beneath Finn's, and slid belly first into the dark. Emma followed with the oilskin pressed to her chest, the locket cool at her throat, the heat at her back suddenly loud as a crowd. Martha crawled, her breath squeaking, one fist in D.I. Price's coat.
Mind the swell.
The rock closed around them. Torches turned to milk in the mist. Smoke thinned, traded for the metallic cold of an anvil sea. The floor ribbed under their knees. The ceiling forced shoulders forward. Emma's hip bones skimmed rock. She tasted iron and fear and something like limescale.
If it pinches.
We reverse on 3. Don't fight the push, ride it. Behind, the chamber snarled and boomed as the fire found its ceiling and ran along it like a fox under a henhouse. In front, the slot suckled tide. Inhale, exhale, a pressure change that made ears pop. In the half-light, Martha's hand found Emma's calf. Emma covered it with hers and dragged it forward.
I can't. You can. Think of your front room, your kettle, that old radio with the cracked dial. We go to that.
The slot let go. Space lifted above them. They could crouch instead of crawl. The rock sweated, the air vibrated with the sea's breath, and somewhere to the right, the world fell away. Aidan's torch angle sharpened.
Hold.
The floor ended in a slick ledge no wider than a church pew. Beyond it, black. Below, the roar of water in a throat. A blowhole chamber. The sea rammed under them and fired itself up some chimney of rock in a periodic heave, leaving the ledge glazed. A rusted chain dangled from above, bolted into the ceiling long ago, swinging in a tired arc.
Smugglers.
Or pilchard men. Net lofts used to open to these. See the iron? We go up, one at a time. Merrick, you first with Mr. Roby. Ames, there should be a second line above. If I say down, you drop it.
The chain was not built for comfort. Aidan slung Finn across his back like a child and found footholds with his toes, thighs burning, breath hissing through his teeth as the next pulse of water made the whole chamber buck. Emma watched Rope's shadow jump. D.I. Price set Martha's hands on the chain and bracketed her like a parent teaching a toddler stairs.
Up.
The chimney narrowed and then widened. Old tar blackened the rock like fingerprints. Emma's palms burned. Once, her knee slid and banged bone against stone hard enough to jar a swear from her lips. Once, a surge of air slapped so hard it made her shoulders laugh against the chain and then ache. Then Aidan's hand reached down from a new darkness and closed around her wrist. With me, they tumbled into a low-timbered void that smelt of old fish and rope grease. A hatch above them gaped square to a night paler than the cavern, fringed with rough plank, the underfloor of some shack built over the sea. Aidan shoved the hatch with his shoulder. It gave with a long, damp sigh.
Martha, 2 steps, that's it now.
They lifted into salt wind. A net loft crouched on stilted piles over black water, an old pilchard shed nailed to the cliff like an afterthought. Nets sagged from pegs. A coop of gulls muttered on the roof. Beyond, the cove mouth showed as a narrower dark against sky, blue strobe still pulsing out there, alien and distant.
Thank God.
Sit, head between knees.
Redfern, where are you?
Inspector, we're above you at the loft. Mr. Trevelyan is attempting to come down the main cleft with his team. We're holding the entrance with tape and bodies.
Tape is so persuasive. Keep him back. We're coming out the old loft.
The loft had doorboards swollen with years. Aidan kicked one twice and then put his shoulder into it. Wood tore with a sound like paper. They spilled to a narrow platform hung with floats. A rickety stair clung to the cliff. Above, police silhouettes blotted the lower stars.
Inspector Price, I do hope you're quite safe.
He set a fire in a cave.
And will donate to the lifeboats tomorrow. Move, they climbed. Paramedics in green were waiting at the top, faces pinched with cold and annoyance, foil blankets crackling like tinder. They wrapped Finn, then Martha, then, despite protests, Emma. A A constable took the sealed evidence bag from Aidan's arm with a look that was all regulation. You don't get points for heroics with evidence, sir.
You get a diary that didn't cook.
You removed an item from my chain of custody without instruction. Your chain of custody was about to be a chain of sausages. Don't do it again.
The lane above the cove had turned into a pageant. Blue lights reflected off cottage windows. The Trevelyan estate's dark SUVs idled like patient cattle. Julian stood just beyond the tape line, coat immaculate, flanked by two men who looked like they had opinions on rugby and private school. His face had the blankness of wealth at midnight.
We'll be arranging for a survey of our land. That cavern is on our titles.
And the arson within it.
An unfortunate accident with a camping stove by some trespasser none of us will ever identify, I fear. You must admit it was very smoky. You tried to burn us.
Miss Whitaker.
I'm sorry the evening has fatigued you.
Two constables widened the human gap between police and estate. Words that didn't quite become words ground in the space. Finn, under foil, watched Julian with the flat look of someone who had learned to count the teeth of the shark that owned his bay.
He'll do me in. Not on my watch.
Then keep your watch long, Inspector. Statements, names for the forms, the tidy clip of pens on damp paper, an agreement made there on the lane. Finn would go to Truro Hospital under observation and police guard. Martha would be taken to her niece's house up the valley. Emma and Aidan would accompany D.I. Price to the station to give accounts that could be typed and amended and initialed.
You okay?
No, but I'm here. Good.
The station at this hour was a fluorescent aquarium, too bright, too clean, too loud after the cave's fathoms. Coffee tasted of plastic lid. A duty sergeant clipped his vowels through a yawn. In interview room 2, a camera light glowed a board red.
We'll start with an informal account, then we'll record. I want the order of events as you experienced them, not as you think a court would like them. Yes.
And you, historian of what, precisely? Smuggling, mining, the ways the past holds its breath in rock.
Then hold yours and listen. If I'm going to keep you alive, I need you to let me do my job. And if I'm going to help you find what Lillian hid, I need you not to lock it in a cupboard until it's too late.
We'll see if either of us gets what we want. They talked. Emma described the locket's lens and the diary's vanishing ink letters, the phrase low-tide passage, the cabinet, the crest. She described Julian's men, the smell of petrol, the fire, the chain. Aidan filled in local names, net lofts, old adits, which miners drunk on Saturdays cursed which stretches of shore. Martha, shaking, spoke of Lillian, as if the woman were a weather system that had rolled through and left people speaking softly in its wake.
You found this lens in the locket? It's a crystal, etched somehow. It reveals the writing. Like a filter, polarization, or simply magnifying the distressed residues. Old inks love a little chemistry.
We'll have scenes go over that cabinet at first light. If it hasn't fallen in the tide. If it hasn't been tidied.
They'll go back.
So will we. The clock on the wall clicked from 2:03 to 2:04, like a metronome for bureaucrats. Someone laughed in the corridor. Finn's name came over the radio with the reassuring monotony of a hospital handover signed and countersigned. The duty sergeant slid a printout under the door with his fingertips. CPS will love this. What?
The Trevelyan estate is offering to fund the coastal path repairs they say your adventure damaged. They've CC'd my chief superintendent, the MP, and the Lord Lieutenant for sport.
Will they fund the cave we were nearly flambéed in?
They'll fund my inbox for a month.
She broke the seal on the evidence bag with a practiced care that made Emma's stomach tighten. The oilskin slid out, heavy with sea and history. D.I. Price laid the diary on the table between them as if it might roll. The black cloth was threadbare at spine and corners, the word Lillian on the flyleaf, a ghost without the lens.
Show me.
Emma unclasped the locket. The little lens caught the room's harsh light and gentled it. She lowered it to the page. Letters rose, shy and sure.
If you are not me, be braver than I was. We're trying.
De Price nodded once, a small concession to wonder, and gestured. Emma turned the page. Blank, lens down, script coalesced.
Ask for the low-tide passage. The truth lies doubled where the sea keeps its mirror. Look where the red room remembers me. If you stand in front of my face, you'll see yourself. But that is not where the secret is.
Red room. There's a red drawing room at the big house. paintings, mirrors, old Trevelyan mouths.
You've been inside.
Open days, history trust tours, they like to be loved for their roofs.
Where the sea keeps its mirror.
A tide pool, a moon pool,
Or a line on a tourist brochure. We'll take them both.
On a later page, the ink rose slower, then faster, as if the hand that wrote had doubted, then decided.
If you're reading this, I failed to do what was needed. But I did not fail to tell the truth somewhere it could not be burned. The copy hangs where they toast their guests. The original waits where they never look down. Copy original.
If she photographed something and made two sets, one displayed, one hidden.
Then we find what's on the wall, and we find what's underfoot.
The interview light hummed. Emma ran her thumb over the page's edge, feeling the grain where the ink, not ink, lay flat. The book had other weight, a bookbinder's trick. There, at the back board, where the cloth bubbled slightly. She pressed with her nail. The board flexed.
There's something under the back.
Stop. Scenes will open it with a lens and a brush and a halo on their heads. You do not get to be the person who breaks my case and my heart in one go.
Okay, listen to the inspector, for once.
You first.
A knock. The door opened a crack, and a constable slid his head through with the apologetic expression of a man bringing news to a table where tea was cooling.
Inspector? Mr. Trevelyan has called in. He's offering to donate access to the house this afternoon so we can, quote, dispel misapprehensions. He also says he's having the cliff stairs inspected for safety in the wake of, quote, tonight's regrettable incident. Media are already in the lane, he's tweeted.
Of course he has.
And there's a message at the desk for Miss Whittaker. Hand-delivered, no name, just asked for her by description.
By description? Woman, early 40s, coastal mud on boots, locket on chain.
Give it to me. Unlined paper, no return. A tidy hand, not looping like Lillian's, but that same old-fashioned schooling. 3 sentences. If you want the mirror, do not go through the front door. At low tide, the lion doesn't roar. It drinks. Bring the locket. Come alone.
No, I won't go alone.
You won't go at all without a warrant or my shadow.
The lion's head.
What? At the base of the old seawall below the big house. Stone spout carved like a lion. It used to pour in storms. Children would dare each other to touch its tongue. We called it the lion's drink. Low tide exposes the sill. There's an intake there, a sluice for the ornamental pond in the east garden. If the lion drinks, it means flow reverses. They could be telling us there's a lower access, a servant's way, drainage.
And a trap. We do this the boring way.
Julian will launder the walls before boring gets there.
Then we make boring fast. I'll get my warrant. Redfern, wake up scenes. Ames, call Truro and make sure Finn has an armed babysitter with good shoes. And for God's sake, someone speak to communications before my chief rings me like an alarm clock. As instructions pinned to the air like new notices on a parish board, Emma slid the locket's lens along the margin of the last page they'd read. Faint, so faint it could have been a flaw, a series of tiny pricks aligned like stars resolved under the crystal. Not letters, numbers, coordinates too few for a map, too deliberate for accident. 1703 R.
What is that? 17th painting, 3rd row, room for red.
Look at you two, nearly helpful. Merrick, how many paintings in that blessed room?
2 rows of portraiture, 1 row of landscapes. The red room has the long wall with Trevelyan patriarchs, another with wives, fireplace with a mirror, a Dutch still life near the window. If it's numbered by the curator's system, 17 would be.
The mirror.
The room felt warmer. Not safe, never that, but aligned for a heartbeat, like a compass needle given a quiet table.
Right, we do this by day, and we do it with my people holding the tape. Miss Whittaker, Mr. Merrick, you will not approach the house on your own. I mean that.
Understood. Understood. The interview wrapped, not with a bow, but with the careful knots of exhibits signed, times logged, copy schedules printed. Outside the glass, dawn unzipped the horizon with a dirty seam of pink. Emma rubbed her eyes with the heel of her hand and felt grit, salt, sleep.
You did well.
My bar for well used to be signing a divorce paper without shaking. Bars move. Eat something before you fall over. There's a cafe next to the station that opens indecently early, and wait for my call.
You keep that locket on you. Don't let anyone borrow your eyes. I won't.
The sky wore a bruise of half-light. Gulls wrote rude words in it. The cafe smelled of hot bread and overconfident coffee. They sat by a window that had seen too many uniforms. Steam turned Emma's cheeks damp and human again.
17th third read.
Lion that drinks.
And a copy on a wall where they toast their guests. What do you think she photographed? Something people would set fires for.
On the cafe's window, a reflection moved that didn't belong to any customer inside. Too still, too careful. Emma's hand went to the locket by reflex. A shape across the street watched the door, not like a passerby watches, but like a fisherman watches a float.
Do you see him?
Gray coat, black cap, Trevelyan gatekeeper, same jaw as the man at the cove. He's learning your face.
Good, let him learn.
Don't sprout horns yet.
Her mobile hummed, an unknown number. She let it buzz twice, 3 times, then thumbed it open.
Low tide at 14:17. Lions drink when the servants sweep. If you want the mirror, bring only your eyes.
Servants sweep.
They're telling us when staff clean the red room. Fewer visitors, fewer eyes.
Except ours. She texted back before she could name the impulse. I'm not coming alone.
Then don't come at all.
I'm not asking Trevelyan permission.
You're not going without Elwyn Price either.
Since when are we on first-name terms with the law? Since she pulled us up by the scruffs and didn't let go.
The cafe door chimed. Cold Air walked in wearing a uniform. Elwyn Price crossed to their table with a folder under her arm and purpose in her stride.
Warrants drafting. House opens its doors for us at 1300 because Mr. Trevelyan believes he's staging theater. Low tide is at 14:17. We'll take the red room first. Then we'll let the lion drink. You will follow my line. You will not improvise.
You will find it. We'll find something. Whether we keep it depends on how steady your hands are. Outside, the sea was already drawing breath for the afternoon, an inhale that would show stones usually hidden, mouths usually shut. In Emma's pocket, the locket's lens warmed like a knowing coin. In the big house on the headland, a mirror waited in a red room where people raised glasses over old lies, and under the seawall the lion dozed, tongue to stone, thirsty, almost time to drink. Chapter 3. The Red Room Remembers. Noon dragged its heels across a washed-out sky as the Trevelyan House heaved into view, a Georgian hulk overlooking the cliff, all pale stone and expensive restraint. Police tape fluttered across the lower steps. A local reporter rehearsed outrage into a phone as if auditioning for the 6 o'clock news. Emma stepped from the unmarked car with the locket tucked beneath her collarbone and the taste of brine still caught at the back of her throat. Smile, he's running this like theater.
Then let's ruin his show.
Elwyn Price met them at the forecourt with a warrant in one hand and her other already raised for stillness.
We are here to execute a search of the red room and any associated fixtures, including decorative mirrors, frames, and concealed compartments. You are observers only. If I say out, you go.
Understood. Understood.
The double doors swung in on silent hinges. Air conditioning washed the salt from their skins and replaced it with lemon polish and old money. A house manager with a name badge, Penhaligon, accepted the warrant with a professional smile that did not reach her eyes. Behind her, a solicitor hovered with the manner of a man who had written letters that made other men resign. Inspector Price, welcome. I've arranged light refreshments in the morning room for your officers.
Have you arranged to stay out of my way?
I am constitutionally incapable. Do lead on. They passed portraits that watched with the sort of hauteur only oil can perfect, fruit that had been glossier for 2 centuries than any real apple deserved, and display cases with glass so clean it disappeared. Emma's boots made traitor sounds on parquet she wanted to scuff.
The Trevelyan hang, patriarchs on the long axis, wives on the short, red room ahead. 17th third R.
The red room justified its name without subtlety. Crimson damask walls, a fireplace in Carrara marble, a gilt mirror crowning the mantel, and ranks of family faces, their pigments deepened by varnish and time. Sun pooled in ovals on the floorboards, dust motes performed for it.
Full index, lamps, rakes, no solvents yet. I want non-contact first. Photograph everything as it is before we sneeze.
Yes, ma'am. Julian stood at the threshold with his solicitor at his shoulder and the house manager an exact step back. He looked at the room with proprietary fondness, then at Emma, like someone noting a scuff on a favorite shoe.
Do tell your people to mind the silk. It stains with tears. Then pray it stays dry.
Merrick, we're 17.
If they catalog left to right starting at the door, 1 to 9 along Patriarchy Row, 10 to 18 along the opposite return. 17 would be Mantelpiece Central, the mirror.
Record the frame passive first.
Lights rose and moved like thoughtful moons. Brushes hovered but did not touch. A handheld spectrometer chattered softly at layers invisible to the naked eye. The gilt frame around the mirror gave up fingerprints that belonged to staff, documented, and a few that did not, bagged to be matched. The backing board, visible where the frame had gaped a hair, showed pencil notations. Aidan angled, reading upside down.
R1703, same code. It's tagged to the book.
Miss Whitaker, your lens.
Emma unclasped the locket. The crystal lens drank the red room's light and returned it softer. She raised it toward the mirror's face, expecting nothing and prepared to pretend for the sake of the moment. The glass seemed to resist, and then, reluctantly, it yielded. Letters bloomed on the mirror's surface as if they'd always been there, buried in the silvering, coaxed now into shy speech. Not ink, shadow writing, a palimpsest of light. The words wrote themselves backward, as all mirror words do, and then, seen through the lens, righted, readable.
I left my face where they drink to it, but my eyes are not here. Find where the sea keeps its mirror, where the lion never roars.
The lion spout.
Where the servants sweep.
Photograph exactly as the witness sees it through the lens. Use the macro. Slow your breath.
Copy, Holden, got it.
Emma drew the lens away and the writing sank back into the glass like a tide. She tried the lens on the portrait to the left of the mirror, a lady in vermilion with a lapdog and a mouth drawn to pinch. Nothing. On the patriarch to the right, a man who had spent a lifetime unsaying apologies. Nothing. Back to the mirror. There, the letters again, and something more. A faint set of lines that at first looked like a cleaning smear and then resolved under the lens into a contour. Headland and cove, a small circle at the base of a wall, a lion shed sketched with a few deft strokes, an arrow, 2 marks like tide notches. Numbers, 1417.
Low tide, we knew, but she fixed it in the glass. And she fixed the location. That's probable cause for every drain in this house. Miss Penhaligon, where is the seawall intake for your ornamental pond?
I have an operations plan for fountains and ponds. The intake is historical. We keep it closed. I'll have to check the schematics.
Do that now.
Julian watched the proceedings with the calm of a man who had factored all variables except this exact one. The mirror's silvering did not care for his lineage. It remembered Lillian instead. It's extraordinary what tricks of light can suggest to imaginative minds.
It's extraordinary what fear does to truth.
My client continues to extend every courtesy.
Your client will extend a chair outside the threshold.
The solicitor smiled the way a wolf might if it had hired a publicist. He ceded half a step. Julian ceded none, then did anyway because 2 constables were suddenly, politely, exactly where they needed to be. Ma'am, there's residue under the upper right cartouche. Wax, red, very old, impression lost, but the edge shows crenellation.
A broken seal.
She sealed something into the frame once, and someone opened it, cataloged the residue, image and bag. Aidan moved along the wives' row, eyes narrowing as scholarship kicked in. Craquelure patterns in old varnish map like river delta. These were a little too neat, a little too evenly distributed. He held his phone's torch at a raking angle and nodded to himself. This portrait, Lady Honoria Trevelyan, 1874, is a modern reproduction. The craquelure is printed. There's even a moire artifact along the shadow of the necklace. Someone rehung a copy where an original once was.
Confirm non-invasively.
He's right. Pigment islanding is repetitive. Varnish fluoresces wrong. We rotate works for conservation. Copies are prudent.
Copies hide what the originals show.
The room was a loop now. Mirror, lion, low tide. Where the sea keeps its mirror wasn't poetry, it was plumbing. Emma looked at her watch. 13:09. An hour and change until the sea let them in.
We keep searching this room for further indicators. Then we move to the seawall. Miss Penhaligon, your schematics. The east garden pond takes from a culvert that opens below the lion spout. The sluice is from the 1890s, redundant since 1978. The valve is capped. Uncap it.
I will need authorization from the estate board.
You have a warrant. Consider yourself authorized.
The solicitor inhaled to object. The constables inhaled no air at all, somehow making more room in less space. The house manager pivoted. the professional smile back in place like a uniform.
As you wish.
Before they left, Emma raised the lens one last time and held it directly in front of her own face reflected in the mirror. Her features doubled, then aligned, then fell away. The glass showed not her, not the room, but briefly, a slice of cliff and sky, the exact angle she'd seen last night when she fled into the cove. A trick? A memory caught in silver? The lens warmed between her fingers.
We're coming. She'd like that. She'd like that.
Wind combed the lawns into obedient stripes. The east garden sat lower, sheltered, its ornamental pond a dark eye under copper beeches. A stone seawall ran the garden's outer lip, older than the pond by a century, its base cut by a lion's head spout, whose mouth had long since grown a beard of salt.
Scene perimeter. Keep guests out of my line. Tape around the seawall access. I want tideboard readings every 5 minutes. Low tide at 14:17, ma'am. You two are strictly rear line. If you run ahead, I'll trip you myself.
Understood.
Show me the cap.
The house manager produced a steel cover plate keyed into the lawn with 2 bolts and a padlock. The padlock's teeth were newer than the plate. Soko photographed, dusted, bagged the lock, and cut it with a bolt cutter that made Aidan wince in sympathy for metal. The plate lifted to reveal a valve wheel the size of a ship's helm, corroded to the color of old pennies.
It'll turn if I sweet-talk it.
Record each quarter turn.
The wheel protested, then grudgingly moved. Somewhere under their feet, a pipe remembered what it had been. Water burped. The lion's stone tongue, dry for decades, darkened with a thin wetness.
15 minutes. 14:17.
On the terrace above, journalists pretended to admire the view. Julian, arms folded, did not pretend. He watched the lion as if it were a pet that might decide to bite.
You do know this is dangerous.
So is arson in a confined space.
The sea drew itself back, tightening the skin of the bay. Rocks that had slept all day rolled one shoulder into air. The lion's mouth glistened. Aidan tested the edge of the sill beneath the spout with the toe of his boot.
There'll be a culvert we can belly into like the cavern, except narrower and filthier.
After last night, that's almost a luxury.
Lines on everyone entering, helmets, no heroics.
When the board read the number they needed and the sea agreed, they moved. The culvert mouth under the lion was an insult to posture, half height and slick as eel skin. Aidan slid first, rope around his waist, headlamp cutting a cone through damp air. Emma followed, lens on its chain, oilskin diary left at the station after a short, vehement argument she'd lost and secretly appreciated losing. D.I. Price came last, voice carrying steady authority into the confined space.
Call distances. Mark turns. Do not touch unknown objects. If anyone says out, all of you reverse.
The culvert tasted of iron and algae. It hummed with the memory of water even now as the tide held its breath. Their steps made the old echo of servants scrubbing stone and muttering about things above their pay grade. The ceiling descended just enough to make necks ache. The floor ribbed in a pattern that promised bruises.
10 meters, elbow right, watch the lip.
There's paint on the wall.
On the right-hand turn, a smear of something that had once been red, the color of sealing wax, of theater velvet, of Lillian's dress in a photograph, streaked the mortar. Not accidental. A fingernail's worth pressed there by someone crawling with shaking hands and a plan. Red Room remembers me.
Photograph move.
The culvert spilled into a wider vault that did not belong to an ornamental pond. Victorian brick arched overhead, blackened in places where candle smoke had kissed it for years. Along one wall, niches, 3, then 4, like shallow altars. In the second niche lay a rusting tea tin wrapped in oilcloth. In the fourth, nothing. In the first,
There.
a wooden box no larger than a book, beeswaxed and simple, sat within the first niche. No lock. A lion stamped into the lid in the same heraldic posture as the mirror cartouche. The wax around the edge was unbroken. Emma's fingers trembled despite herself.
Record. No one breathes on it until you've shot it from 3 sides.
Shooting, the box waited like a held note. Water ticked somewhere deep in the masonry. Emma could feel Aidan's presence a foot away, a warmth in the cold. Price nodded once.
Open.
Emma slid her fingernail under wax and lifted. The seal parted with a sigh. Inside, wrapped in red tissue that had faded to the color of old brick, lay a glass plate negative, larger than a postcard, heavy in the hand, its emulsion dark with history. Against the light of her headlamp, the image ghosted. A room full of men in dinner dress raising glasses to a painting unveiled on an easel, the red room's mirror catching their backs. A figure at the edge whose face had not been meant to appear but had, reflected, pin-sharp startled Lillian.
She photographed their unveiling.
And caught someone in the mirror.
Who?
Emma brought the locket's lens to the plate as if compelled. The crystal tugged the image into focus, contrast leaping. The man whose face the mirror had stolen into the frame stood close to Julian's father. No, grandfather, his hand on the easel, his profile turned toward the glass to admire himself. Not a guest, not a servant either. Emma had seen the face in another medium many times, dressed in paint along the long wall of patriarchs. Trevelyan, but the wrong one. The date would make it Arthur Trevelyan's era, but the mirror shows...
The man we were told was a cousin. He's the one unveiling. The line is wrong. The portrait on the wall is a copy because it's not the right man.
A genealogical swap documented in a photograph no one knew existed. Motive for a lifetime of suppression.
Beneath the plate lay a second thing. A slip of paper, blue with age, bearing a name and a registry number in Lillian's tidy hand. A ship's registry? No, the header, Registrar General of Births, Marriages, and Deaths. A marriage entry marked with a Trevelyan name that should not have been wed to the spouse listed. Legitimacy shifted with a single line of ink. She gathered receipts.
And they tried to drown them. Pack it like your job depends on it. Because it does. Double case it. Redfern, get me a runner to the car and do not let anyone sneeze on the evidence.
The culvert's air changed slightly, one of those tiny movements the body notices before the mind. Aidan lifted his head. Emma did too. The sound came a heartbeat later, distant voices, then a clatter, then a clamp of silence.
Who's at the mouth?
Ma'am, house staff are concerned about stability. They're insisting we withdraw. Mr. Trevelyan is saying a tide surge is due.
Inspector Price, I do hope your people are finished.
He's at my tape.
He owns the tape.
A sound like a distant door sliding into a frame echoed along the brick. Aidan swore under his breath, turning toward the way they came. Emma's stomach dropped as air pressure shifted. Barely, but enough.
Great. He's dropped a bloody grate. Out, now. Leave the niche as is, Redfern. Meet us at the second elbow with a pry bar.
Case sealed. They moved as one creature now, a rope of people with a single intent. Daylight. The culvert bit their knees and kissed their helmets. Ahead, faint light wavered, then strobed as if someone waved a torch across slats. The grate sat where the culvert narrowed for the last meter, slammed down from an old slot like a portcullis, iron teeth biting stone. Outside, seawater glittered, too near and too smug. We're not trapped.
We're delayed. Redfern, here, got the bar in 1-2.
Iron complained. Mortar dust fell like old snow. Hands changed on the bar. A screw that hadn't moved in 40 years decided to consider a new life and turned a quarter, then another. The grate lifted a breath. Aidan jammed a boot into the gap and regretted it immediately.
Pull.
Pull.
The grate rose enough for a body to slide. Emma didn't wait for permission.
Me first.
No.
Emma flattened, pushed, scraped elbows, and was out into light that felt dirty and perfect. She rolled, grabbed the grate edge with Redfern, and hauled until her shoulders burned. Aidan came next, swearing in a controlled academic register that sounded like Latin made angry. Soko slid evidence through with the care of midwives. D.I. Price came last, eyes on Julian beyond the tape.
I was worried for your safety. Old mechanisms have minds of their own.
Mr. Trevelyan, you have interfered with a police search and endangered officers. Step away from my scene.
From my garden.
Before I forget to be polite.
Redfern hustled the case toward the car with a shadow already on his heels. The lion's mouth dripped an innocent line of water. Emotions moved under Julian's stillness like sharks under a slick sea. Emma stood, damp and shaking, and very much alive, with the glass plate's truth now boxed and logged, and felt the day tilt. He knows what we have.
And he knows what we don't.
The mirror had remembered. The sea had kept its mirror. But somewhere between the red room and the seawall, a missing piece still sat like a gap in a smile. Emma felt the locket warm against her skin, as if urging her to look again, deeper, lower, before the tide turned their advantage to his. Chapter 4. The Lion Drinks. The lion's head spout dripped with a patient rhythm, each bead of water falling like punctuation in a sentence only Lillian had begun to write. Emma watched it from the cordoned garden, foil blanket gone, adrenaline gone too, leaving a hollowness that the sea was only too eager to fill.
He didn't care that we saw him drop the grate. He wanted us to know he could. He wanted us afraid.
Julian Trevelyan still lingered by the upper balustrade, speaking to his solicitor in tones just loud enough to carry. Not boasting, not threatening, merely demonstrating that presence itself was power. The police tape fluttered at his knees like a leash he had every intention of ignoring.
He's rattled. Rattled men make mistakes, but we won't. Miss Whitaker, Mr. Merrick, you've done your bit for today. Go home. Rest.
You're benching us. I'm keeping you alive.
There's a difference.
Sometimes. Sometimes.
They were escorted back through lanes that twisted like old ropes, past cottages with curtains twitching at blue lights, until the police dropped them at Emma's rented stone cottage near the cliff. The place looked smaller now and lonelier, as if it too had overheard Julian's voice.
Bolts work, curtains shut, kettle?
We just crawled through a culvert with Victorian slime on our faces, and you want tea.
It's an English reflex. When the world bites, we brew.
Steam rose. The quiet was almost unbearable, the adrenaline crash worse. Emma spread the diary and photographs across her small table. The lens revealed once more those looping invisible words, and each time she looked, her father's old metal detector leaning in the corner seemed to nod her onward, like he had known this trail would come.
She wasn't just hiding, she was leaving us breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs that someone's tried to bury for 60 years. A sudden thump rattled the door. Both of them froze. Another thump, softer, like a hand, not a fist. Emma's stomach hollowed.
Not the police.
Stay back. He opened the door a crack. A slip of paper pushed through, followed by footsteps retreating into the night. Aidan stooped, unfolded it, and read aloud.
The lion drinks again tonight. Come without the police, or you'll never see what she left. They know about the locket. They know we saw the mirror, and they want you alone.
What if Lillian left more than the photograph? What if this is...
Emma, it's bait, they'll gut you. But even as he said it, the locket warmed against Emma's skin again, as though it wanted her to go. The weight was undeniable, pulling, urging, insisting.
She's guiding me.
Or they're using her ghost to finish what they started.
The clock ticked, the kettle hissed. Outside, the sea pulled back its skirts, preparing for another low tide, another chance to reveal what it kept hidden. Emma looked at Aidan, and in his eyes she saw both the warning and the need, not to let the Trevelyans win by fear. We go together tonight.
Then we go armed, with light, with rope, with someone knowing where we've gone.
But not the police. Aidan stared at her, the weight of every historian's caution fighting against the urgency in her voice. Finally, he exhaled, long and tired. Fine, but if this is a trap, Emma...
Then we spring it, on our terms.
Fog thickened as they descended toward the seawall. The lion's carved head glistened, water trickling from its mouth in a sound too much like breathing. Their headlamps carved narrow tunnels through the murk. The tide was low again, the rocks exposed, the path treacherous.
Every instinct in me is saying turn back.
Every instinct in me is saying forward.
They crouched at the lion's mouth. Emma held up the lens. The carved stone shimmered under its gaze, lines crawling into view, words etched by hands long gone. When the lion drinks twice, the servant's passage opens. Do not trust the men with keys, trust the mirror of the sea.
Twice, tonight's the second.
As if in answer, the water within the lion's throat burbled louder, and a grinding noise stirred beneath them. Stone shifted. A thin seam cracked open at the base of the wall, black and wet, revealing a crawl space no larger than a coffin.
She left us more.
Or Julian did, Emma think.
Before either could decide, a beam of light flared from behind, slicing the fog. Heavy boots crunched stone. A voice, calm and certain, broke the night.
I told you the tide takes what belongs to us.
Emma spun toward him, the locket burning against her skin, the crawl space gaping at her feet, the choice clear. Step into Lillian's secret, or face the Trevelyan shadow head-on. Chapter 5. Into the lion's throat. The fog clung to Emma's skin like wet cloth, every breath tasting of salt and iron. At her feet, the seam beneath the lion's stone mouth gaped wider, water seeping from it in little pulses like a vein ready to burst. Behind, Julian Trevelyan's torch cut through the mist in measured sweeps, each pass claiming ownership of the night.
You're persistent. I'll grant you that. Most would have fled the moment they smelled fire in the cavern.
Most aren't, Emma Whittaker.
Emma's name slid off Aidan's tongue like a blade unsheathed. Julian's light steadied on her face.
No, she's stubborn, and stubbornness drowns faster than fear.
Or it survives where fear runs.
The crawl space hissed at her feet, the grinding within it louder now, a sluice opening, stones shifting in their sockets. The air dragged inward as though the sea itself had drawn breath.
Emma, this is it, the servant's passage. We can get inside before he moves.
By all means, crawl into the belly of my house. You'll find it eager to keep what it swallows.
The locket grew hot against Emma's chest, a pulse to match her heartbeat. She lowered its lens toward the black seam. Etched words shimmered in the wet stone.
Where the lion drinks twice, the brave may pass. The mirror waits below, but beware the faces above. You're both fools.
We go.
Together. Together.
They dropped to their knees. Aidan pushed Emma forward into the narrow seam first, his hand at her back, steady, insistent. Stones scraped her shoulders. Seawater licked at her wrists. The space smelled of old copper, old storms, and secrets that had not seen air for decades. Behind them, Julian's voice carried with quiet pleasure.
Do enjoy your crawl. I'll be here when the tide shuts the door.
The passage pinched their ribs, squeezing the air from their lungs, forcing them to move in rhythm. Inhale, shuffle, exhale, shuffle. Their headlamps threw cones of light that struck old brick, seaweed clinging in slick strands. Rats had once known this place. Bones of fish still whispered in corners.
10 meters, left bend coming.
How can you tell?
Smugglers dug with patterns, and the drought changes. The locket's lens caught faint glimmers on the walls, marks of chalk, perhaps, or salt-dried symbols. Spirals, crosses. Once the faint outline of a hand pressed in soot. And then, more words, barely visible until the lens coaxed them alive.
Not all servants were loyal. Trust only the mirror that answers you. God, she left warnings like breadcrumbs. Then we'll follow every one.
The seam widened abruptly into a vaulted space beneath the house. The sound of the sea dulled, replaced by the drip of condensation and the hum of air forced through ancient vents. Bricks sweated. Moss glowed faintly in patches, a sickly green. In the center, a stone basin sat beneath another lion's head spout, this one dry, carved more crudely, forgotten. Its surface gleamed faintly under their lights. On the wall behind, a mirror hung crooked in a corroded frame. Not gilt, not polished, just a rectangle of tarnished glass that had survived where everything else had rotted.
The sea's mirror.
And no one else down here, yet.
Emma lifted the locket lens. The tarnished mirror shimmered, and again words surfaced.
If you see me, I'm gone. If you do not, I remain. Trust the reflection, not the room.
Aidan moved closer, crouching before the basin. Scratched into its stone lip were initials LT, over and over, like someone desperate to leave her name.
Lillian.
She was here. A noise cut through, the faint scrape of boots on stone. Not Julian's drawling steps, faster, heavier, more than one pair. They followed. He sent them down another way. There's more than one entrance. The crawl they'd come through was too narrow to escape quickly. The basin and mirror loomed as their only chance. Emma lifted the lens again. This time, instead of words, the mirror's silvering rippled. Shapes blurred, deepened, showing something behind the reflection. A doorframe, a stairwell, a way out. It's showing us a way through.
Or showing us bait.
It's Lillian. She's guiding us.
The first of Julian's enforcers spilled into the chamber, their torches knifing across stone. One barked a command, another drew something metal that clicked loud in the stale air.
Emma.
Emma pressed the locket lens hard against the mirror's face. The silver gave way, not like glass breaking, but like water parting. A shimmer opened, impossibly, into depth. Cold air rushed through, smelling of the sea and candle wax. Through here!
Go!
Emma plunged through the shimmering surface, dragging Aidan after her. For a heartbeat, she felt nothing but cold, like falling into the tide. Then her boots struck solid stone. Behind them, the enforcers' torches glared, beams cutting across, but the mirror was already hardening, the silver skin sealing shut, their shouts muffled as if behind thick water.
It closed. No, Emma. It locked.
They stood in a passage neither of them had seen before, lit by a faint phosphorescence seeping from the mortar. It led downward, deeper beneath the Trevelyan estate. Above them, faint thuds shook the stone, boots, maybe fists, but they were already gone from that world.
We're inside her trail now.
Then we follow it, but Emma,
Yes, if Lillian built this, she meant someone to find it. She also meant to trap someone who shouldn't. We need to be very sure which of those we are.
Behind them, the mirror was now only glass. Ahead, the phosphorescent passage breathed like a lung, waiting. Emma tightened her grip on the locket, heart hammering. Whatever Lillian had hidden, they were closer now than ever. Closer and deeper in Julian's jaws. Chapter 6. The Passage Below. The air pressed damp and close, the phosphorescence casting faint bruised light along brickwork that seemed to breathe. Emma's boots squelched on a floor slick with algae, her pulse loud enough she feared it might echo. Behind them, the mirror stood flat again, mute stone and glass. Ahead, the passage sloped downward, a gullet leading deeper beneath the Trevelyan estate.
smugglers dug these with purpose, but this is older. Masonry's different.
Older than the house.
Older than the name on the door.
The passage narrowed, ribbed by archways blackened with candle soot. Emma raised the lens against the wall, and the stones themselves whispered back. Faint inscriptions burned invisible without it.
If you see this, the house still lives. Below, the truth waits, though it cost me mine. Do not trust the blood that drinks from silver.
Blood that drinks from silver, Julian's line, a toast. The unveiling in that glass plate, men raising silver goblets. And she saw them for what they were.
The air shifted cooler. They passed niches with offerings long gone, rusted coins, a cracked bottle, a pewter crucifix dulled to nothing. Emma felt Lillian's initials, Elth, scratched on the wall again, each repetition like a hand squeezing hers.
She marked it as she went, breadcrumbs, like you said. But she was frightened. You don't scratch your name unless you think you'll disappear.
Then we'll say it for her. Then we'll say it for her. The tunnel spilled into a circular vault. Its center was dominated by a sunken pool, its surface smooth, a mirror of black water. Phosphorescent streaks bled along its edges, making it glow faintly like a bowl of stars. On the far side stood a heavy door of oak, reinforced with iron, sealed with a crest Emma knew too well, the rampant lion crowned.
The lion again.
And a pool in the middle, a moat. Smugglers never wasted stone for poetry. This was ritual.
Maybe not just smugglers.
The pool's surface rippled, not from their breath, not from any tide, but from the lens itself. Words shimmered on the water like oil.
If you would pass, you must show your face, not as you are seen, but as you are true. False faces drown. That's not practical advice. It's a test.
Something stirred beneath the water, a shadow moving slow, deliberate. Not a fish, too broad, too human. Emma stepped back, breath catching.
There's something in it.
Reflection, Emma. It's a mirror pool. Don't let your eyes trick you.
She looked again. This time, her reflection wavered and split. One Emma pale and shaking, the other staring back with hard, knowing eyes. That second reflection lifted its hand a heartbeat before she did. It moved first.
Step back.
The pool erupted. A surge of black water lashed upward, cold as knives, knocking them both sprawling. Emma skidded across the slime-slick stone, choking as spray burned her throat. From the water rose not flesh but water itself, twisted into the shape of a woman, hair flowing like ink, a face half-formed, shifting, sometimes Emma's, sometimes another's.
Lillian.
The figure lunged. Aidan grabbed Emma, hauling her back toward the wall, torch beams slashing across the watery apparition. Light fractured it briefly, making it shudder.
The lens, Emma, use it.
Emma raised the locket with shaking hands. The crystal caught the torch's beam and focused it through the lens. The watery figure shrieked soundlessly as letters flared across its surface.
Not me, not mine. A mask made of fear. Break it.
The figure collapsed in on itself, splashing back into the pool with a roar that shook the chamber. The water stilled, glassy once more, as if nothing had risen at all. It wasn't her, it was something else. A warning, a trap. The Trevelyans built a guard down here, not supernatural, psychological. Fear drowns quicker than tide. Emma staggered to her feet. The iron-banded door loomed. The crest glistened faintly. Red wax residue hardened in its grooves. She lifted the lens. Here lies what they stole. Here lies the truth that breaks them. If you open this, the house will fall. Then we open it. Emma reached for the iron latch, the weight of Lillian's diary and the lens heavy in her hands. Behind them, the pool rippled once more, faintly, as if something unseen had only retreated, not gone. Ahead, the door waited with its crest, ready to reveal what the Trevelyans had buried beneath their own name. Chapter 7. The Door That Shouldn't Open. The lion's crest glimmered on the oak, red wax clotted in its grooves like dried blood. Emma stood before it, the locket lens warm against her palm, her breath shallow in the sour, damp air. Behind, the pool held its silence too neatly, no ripple, no sigh, only that heavy, waiting stillness. If we break this, there's no going back.
There hasn't been since we opened the diary.
She raised the lens. At once, faint lettering crawled across the iron bands. The key is not in metal, but in sight. Show the lion the eyes that were taken. Only then does it yield.
Eyes that were taken, the mirror, Lillian's reflection. Or mine.
Emma, but she was already lifting the locket. She held the lens up to her own eyes, facing the crest. The iron shimmered, as if seeing her through Lillian's borrowed sight. Then, a deep, mechanical groan rolled through the chamber. The crest sank, gears hidden for centuries grinding awake. The lock split with a crack that echoed like a gunshot.
It worked, or it's only begun.
The door swung inward on rusted hinges, shrieking in protest, and a gust of stale air washed over them. Dust, mildew, and something older, like parchment left too long in the dark. Emma raised her torch. The chamber beyond was long and rectangular, built of dressed stone. Wooden racks sagged along the walls, piled with ledgers swollen by damp, boxes branded with the Trevelyan crest, and cabinets with drawers ajar, spilling brittle paper. But at the center stood something deliberate. A pedestal of black slate, waist-high, supporting a sealed glass case. Inside, a leather-bound ledger with the name Arthur Trevelyan stamped in faded gold. Beside it, another glass case, smaller, cradling an envelope wax-sealed with Lillian's looping initials, LT. She left it here, and so did he. Emma stepped closer, the locket guiding her, her torchlight brushing words stenciled faintly on the slate pedestal, words only the lens made whole.
Theirs is the record of theft, mine is the record of truth. If both are read, the house collapses, but only if you dare to speak them aloud.
Lillian wrote hers, Arthur wrote his. 2 ledgers, mirror and mask.
We take hers first.
Think, touch nothing until we know if it's trapped.
They circled the pedestal. The cases sat on tiny copper plates wired to the stone, crude but effective. Aidan crouched, tracing the wires to the floor.
Alarm system, not modern, Victorian ingenuity. Pressure release. If you lift the case wrong, the whole chamber knows.
Then how do we...
Wait, look.
Through the crystal, words shone across the glass itself.
If you are not me, use my eyes. They will open what my hands cannot. The locket isn't just for ink, it's a key.
Emma lowered the lens until it met the seam of the glass. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then, the copper plates clicked, a faint sigh escaped the wires, and the case unlatched with a gentle hiss. The air inside smelled of lavender and dust. Emma lifted the envelope. The wax seal, Lillian's initials, was cracked already, as if by time itself. Inside, a single sheet of paper folded small. She unfolded it carefully. They built the house on a lie. The name Trevelyan belongs to another, stolen with ink and witness bought in fear. The proof lies in Arthur's hand, his ledger of falsifications. Do not burn his words. Use them. With mine, they collapse together. She was documenting a genealogical fraud. Lineage stolen. That's why the portrait was replaced.
And why they silenced her.
The pool behind them slapped, a single sound like a hand hitting water. Emma and Aidan froze. Slowly, they turned their torches back through the open door. The mirror water had rippled again, and this time, light moved on its surface. Torchlight, not theirs.
They found another way in.
We need Arthur's ledger. It's the match to Lillian's. If we take it, the alarm may still trigger.
Then we take it and run. Heavy boots echoed faintly down the passage outside. Julian's men. The pool quivered, as though remembering the water figure that had already risen once. Emma's hands shook as she reached for the second case, the ledger that could topple the Trevelyan dynasty, or bury them all beneath it.
Lillian, guide me.
The copper plates hummed, the pool stirred, and as Emma laid the lens against the second case, the lion's crest on the ledger seemed almost to roar in the shifting light. Chapter 8. The Ledger of Lies. The copper plates hummed faintly under Emma's hand, a vibration deep in the slate pedestal. She held her breath, lowering the lens over the second glass case. For a moment, the wires seemed to twitch like living veins. Then, silence. The lock gave a reluctant sigh, and the case unlatched.
It worked.
Careful, these things bite if you gloat.
The air trapped in the case carried a bitter, papery scent, as if the ledger had been waiting, resenting the years of silence. Its cover, blackened with mildew, bore the name Arthur Trevelyan in faded gold. Emma touched it with the tips of her fingers before lifting it free. It was heavier than it should have been. This is what he tried to bury.
Then let's exhume him properly.
She cracked the ledger. Pages clung together like drowned things, reluctant to part. Ink bled in places, but much survived. Entries in a neat, confident hand, the kind of hand used to decreeing others' fates.
1872, February. The boy born to Anne Rosier is recorded as legitimate Trevelyan issue by agreement and payment of one sovereign, witnessed by curate James Holden. That isn't how inheritance law worked. No sovereign, no curate, no paper could conjure legitimacy, unless
Unless they bribed the church, falsified the record, and built the entire line on it.
And if that boy was illegitimate, the estate never belonged to them.
Emma turned another page, hands shaking. The ledger grew bolder.
1878. Witness threatened with removal from parish if he spoke. Payment to Lord Lieutenant's agent, 50 guineas. Family name preserved. Family crest upheld.
They bought silence. Generation after generation, they propped up a stolen name with coin and blackmail. And then they had the gall to paint their faces on walls and call themselves untouchable.
Near the back of the ledger, the entries changed. A hand less steady, ink darker, as if written under strain.
1901. She knows. The girl watches from the mirror. She must be stopped. The house cannot be undone by her eyes. If she will not keep her place, she will lose it. Lillian. He wrote it himself. He ordered her silenced.
The torchlight flickered. The words on the page seemed to pulse as though Arthur himself whispered them still. Emma clutched the locket, grounding herself.
We're going to expose every word.
A faint drip echoed behind them, then another. The pool. Its surface had rippled again, though no boots had yet entered the chamber. Emma swung her light back. The water gleamed too bright, too alive.
It knows we're reading, or someone's using it to watch.
They turned back to the pedestal. Lillian's envelope and Arthur's ledger lay side by side now, her truth against his lie. Emma slid her fingers across both, the contrast shocking, her handwriting defiant, his arrogant, damning. This is enough to tear him down. His name, his line, everything.
If we live long enough to get it out. And the score would.
A hollow boom carried down the tunnel. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Not Julian's men this time. Too measured, too solitary.
Someone's coming.
It's him.
Another boom. Then a voice, low and composed, rolling down the stone like it belonged here.
Do you understand now? You hold a book that proves nothing except what every great family has always known, that power is taken, not given. Do you think anyone cares whose blood runs in our veins, so long as it runs richer than yours? You forged a dynasty. You killed Lillian to protect it, and you nearly killed us.
Yet here you are, alive, because I allow it. The truth in your hands is only truth if someone listens. And who will? The courts? The crown? They've feasted at our table for a century.
Julian's torchlight flared at the tunnel's bend, painting the chamber walls. The pool quivered, reflecting his approach with a rippling silver glow.
We should have run the moment we had them.
No, we needed to know. Julian stepped into the chamber, calm as if arriving for supper. His shadow fell across the pool, distorting, elongating, making him look less man than beast.
Now hand me what doesn't belong to you.
Emma's torch trembled, catching both Lillian's envelope and Arthur's ledger on the pedestal. The two documents lay like scales on a balance. The choice was hers: surrender them and live in silence, or defy him and risk drowning in the dark.
Lillian, guide me.
The pool stirred violently, as though the house itself held its breath. The chamber tightened with dread. Emma's next move would decide whether the Trevelyan dynasty stood or finally collapsed. Chapter 9. Confronting the Lion. The chamber shrank to the sound of Julian Trevelyan's voice. He stood framed in the tunnel's mouth, torchlight slanting across damp stone, his shadow stretching monstrous over the pool. Emma's fingers locked tight around Lillian's envelope and Arthur's ledger, her pulse hammering in time with the faint drip of water.
I won't ask again. Hand them over. Those papers belong to the Trevelyan estate.
No, they belong to Lillian, and to every person you've buried under lies. Julian stepped forward, boots echoing in the vault. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. His presence carried the inevitability of tide.
Careful.
We know what you are. We've read it in your grandfather's hand. You forged your bloodline. You stole the name Trevelyan. Every title, every pound, every wall in this house is a fraud.
The torchlight wavered. Julian tilted his head, his expression unreadable. Then he laughed, a quiet, genuine sound. And what do you think that changes? Do you imagine a judge will strip the estate because of one damp ledger and a bitter girl's scribbles? You think truth matters? Truth doesn't matter, Miss Whitaker. Power matters, and power sits with me.
You killed for it.
So did my grandfather. So did his father before him. The Trevelyan name survives because we were willing to dirty our hands where others prayed for clean consciences. And Lillian, she was silenced because she dared to speak. You killed her for telling the truth.
No, Miss Whitaker. We killed her because she thought the truth would save her. No, Miss Whitaker.
Emma's hand shook as she held up the locket lens, its crystal catching Julian's torchlight. The crest on the ledger's cover glowed, words surfacing under the lens.
This line is false. The witness was bribed, the record forged, the house is stolen.
Julian's jaw tightened, his mask cracking a fraction. His voice sharpened, no longer velvet but steel. Enough, give them to me, or I will take them.
Try.
The chamber exploded with movement. Julian surged forward, faster than Emma expected, his hand snapping out toward the ledger. Aidan met him, shoulder to shoulder, the impact echoing like a door slammed in a storm. The two men grappled, torch clattering to the stone, throwing shadows wild across the vault.
Aidan!
Julian was stronger, every motion practiced, controlled. He slammed Aidan back against the pedestal, the ledger nearly knocked from Emma's grasp. Emma clutched it tighter, the envelope pressed to her chest. The locket flared hot against her throat. You don't understand what you hold. That book is a weapon, and I decide where it points.
Not anymore.
With a surge, Aidan twisted, using Julian's own momentum to drive him toward the pool's edge. Julian staggered, boots skidding on wet stone. For the first time, his composure cracked, eyes flashing with sudden fear as his shadow loomed over the black water. Stop, Aidan, don't. The pool rippled violently, as if waiting, as if eager. Julian caught himself at the last instant, balanced on the edge, chest heaving, his eyes locked on Emma, not with fear, but with fury.
If you think you can end us with paper, then you are more naive than she was. The Trevelyans survive. We always survive. Not this time.
She raised the ledger high, locket lens glowing, words blazing visible across its pages. The chamber filled with the damning truth, projected like fire against the walls. Julian's shadow quivered, the pool surged, and Aidan braced himself, because the next move would decide whether truth finally drowned the Trevelyan name, or Emma and Aidan drowned with it. Chapter 10. The Ledger at the Water's Edge. The vault was a tinderbox of breath and shadows. Emma's hands shook as she held the ledger open, the lens burning with Lillian's fury. The words blazed against the stone walls, every line damning the Trevelyan name. Julian's eyes followed them, fury licking beneath his calm. Now. You killed her, you stole everything, and you'll never bury this again. Julian lunged. Aidan intercepted, shoulder colliding with Julian's chest, the two men slamming back against the pedestal. The ledger nearly slipped from Emma's grasp. She clutched it tighter, the envelope crushed against her ribs.
Run, Emma!
I'm not leaving you.
Julian struck with brutal precision, an elbow driving into Aidan's ribs, a fist hooking into his jaw. Aidan staggered but swung back, his knuckles cracking against Julian's temple. The chamber echoed with the sound of flesh and bone colliding, a raw, ugly rhythm.
Stop it, both of you.
Julian drove Aidan backward toward the pool's edge, muscles taut, his face transformed from aristocratic calm to something primal, feral. The water quivered eagerly as though sensing blood.
You think you can erase a century with ink. You think you matter. Truth always matters.
Emma's light caught Julian's eyes, wild, cornered, not immortal after all. He shoved Aidan hard, trying to send him crashing into the black pool.
Aidan!
Aidan's boot slipped on slick stone, his weight tilted. Julian's hands drove down. Emma's heart snapped inside her chest, and she hurled herself forward. Emma slammed into Julian with the force of panic made solid. The ledger clutched to her chest, the lens flaring hot. She struck his shoulder. Julian staggered, his balance broken.
No.
He reeled, his heel skidded over the pool's rim. Aidan wrenched free at the last second, rolling clear, and Julian, lion of the Trevelyans' heir of lies, fell. The water did not splash, it swallowed. Silent, absolute, the surface rippled once, twice, then stilled as though nothing had entered. Oh God, he's gone.
The water took him.
But the pool wasn't calm. Bubbles trembled beneath the surface, faint shapes shifting, as though the water held Julian suspended, deciding whether to return him or keep him. For one breathless moment, Emma thought she saw his face beneath the black sheen, eyes open, mouth moving soundlessly, before it blurred and vanished.
Don't look. Don't give it more.
The chamber fell silent except for their ragged breaths. Emma clutched the ledger and envelope tight against her, the lens still hot, the words still glowing faintly.
It's over.
No, not yet. He has men, a family, and if the pool didn't keep him...
Then we make sure the truth does.
Together, they turned from the pool, the ledger heavy with the weight of history, the echo of Julian's fall still ringing in their ears. The lion-marked door yawned open behind them, the mirror passage waiting ahead. Emma touched the locket against the ledger, as though binding them together.
Lillian, we'll finish it, even if the tide comes for us next. Chapter 11, What the Water Keeps.
The chamber hung in silence, not the clean silence of empty air, but the thick, breath-holding kind that follows violence. Emma pressed the ledger and Lillian's envelope against her chest, her arms shaking, her heartbeat uneven. Across from her, Aidan leaned against the stone wall, ribs heaving, one cheek darkening with a bruise where Julian's fist had landed.
It didn't splash. What? When he fell, the water, it just took him.
Aidan followed her gaze. The pool was flat now, but too flat, like a sheet of glass laid over something alive. The faint phosphorescence licked its edges, making it seem lit from below. For a moment, Emma thought she saw movement again, a flicker of pale skin, a coat sleeve drifting, but when she blinked, it was gone.
Don't give it more than it already took.
But if it, Emma, whatever happened in that water, we can't undo it. All we can do is carry what we've found out of here.
They left the vault in silence, the door groaning shut behind them like something unwilling to let go. The tunnel swallowed their torchlight, damp brick pressing in, the sound of their boots a hollow echo. Emma clutched the ledger so tightly the edges cut into her palms. It wasn't just a book anymore. It felt alive, warm, almost pulsing. Lillian's envelope tucked inside her coat pressed like a second heart.
We have enough, we have to. Enough to bring the house down, if we get out.
At one bend, Emma lifted the locket's lens against the wall. For a breath, Lillian's initials flared faintly in the stone. Elle scratched, hurried, desperate.
She marked her way out, or her way in, knowing she wouldn't leave again.
Neither spoke for a long stretch. Their footsteps became the only sound, until even those seemed too loud. The further they went, the more Emma felt eyes on them. Not Julian's, not the men she knew waited above, but something older. The walls themselves seemed to hum, the tide pressing against them from outside, eager for what they carried. But something old more. At last, the crawl narrowed to a seam of stone and seaweed. Aidan shoved aside a rusted grate and pulled Emma through. Cold night air slapped her face, wet fog clinging to her skin. They were outside again, on the lower rocks beneath the Trevelyan seawall, the lion's mouth gurgling faintly a few feet away.
We made it.
For now, lights glowed faint through the mist, torches or phones. Figures moved on the terrace of the big house. Emma froze, clutching the ledger tighter. For an instant, she thought she saw Julian's tall silhouette among them, coat collar turned up, face hidden in shadow.
No, don't look. Just move.
They climbed the rocks in silence, the fog swallowing their breath. Behind them, the lion's spout dripped steadily, as if mocking, as if remembering. The pool inside the house would keep its secrets. Whether it had kept Julian or returned him, neither dared to guess. "Lillian, I'll finish it, I swear." The tide shifted, dragging at the rocks below. The sea inhaled, exhaled, and in that breath, Emma thought she heard a voice, not Lillian's, not Julian's, but something deep and patient, a voice that said the lion drinks still. Chapter 12, The Hunt Before Dawn. The fog wrapped them in damp silence as Emma and Aidan scrambled up the cliff path from the seawall, their boots slipping on wet shale. Emma's arms ached from clutching the ledger, but she didn't dare loosen her grip. Every step upward was a prayer that the mist would cover their escape. "Keep your head down. Don't silhouette yourself against the ridge."
They saw us on the terrace. Someone saw us.
Then they'll send men, and not the polite kind. Remember Smallinged.
A shout cut through the fog, muffled but close. Then another. The crunch of boots on gravel carried across the rocks. Lights flickered faintly above, torches swinging, beams cutting white slashes through the mist. "They're already moving. Then so are we." They ran. The path zigzagged cruelly, steep steps half-worn into mud and slate. Emma's chest burned, every breath tearing raw, but fear shoved her legs forward. Behind them, voices grew clearer. Men barking orders, the metallic jangle of something carried, weapons or chains.
Down there, by the seawall.
A torch beam stabbed through the fog, striking Emma's back. Aidan shoved her sideways, and they both crashed into gorse, thorns ripping their coats. "Stay down."
We can't let them take it.
Footsteps thundered past, heavy boots on slick rock. A beam swept inches over their heads, blinding white. Emma bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. The ledger seemed to throb against her chest, as if alive with urgency. "He wants them alive. Don't lose the book."
They know about it.
Then we're running with a bullseye painted on us.
The path forked ahead, one branch leading back toward the village exposed and open, the other sloping inland into dark woods, thick with pine and shadow. Voices rose behind them, too close.
Village is shorter.
Too exposed. They'll cut us off.
Then woods. Then woods.
They plunged into the forest, branches clawing at their faces, damp earth muffling their steps. The fog thinned here, broken by black trunks. Emma's lungs screamed, but she forced herself on, the ledger still clutched tight. Behind, the men followed, their beams slicing through trees, their voices closing in.
We're not going to outrun them.
Then we outthink them. He dragged her behind a fallen trunk, pressing her low into the damp moss. The footsteps came closer, lights sweeping. Emma's heart slammed against the ledger, each beat screaming they'd be found.
Spread out, they can't have gone far.
Check the slope. If we find the woman, we find the book.
Emma held her breath. The locket lens pressed warm against her skin, the same way it had near the mirror. For a moment, she thought she saw faint letters shimmer across the ledger's edge, visible only to her. She dared a glance.
Hide where the lion cannot drink.
What?
It's telling us low ground, away from water. If we stay by the slope, they'll find us. We go higher.
Then higher it is.
They slid silently along the trunk, then scrambled upward through bramble and stone, away from the men, away from the sound of trickling streams that fed the pond. Emma clutched the ledger so hard her fingers numbed, whispering a vow into the dark.
Lillian, don't let them win.
Below, torches swept the slope. Voices cursed, closer still. The Trevelyan men were hunting, and as Emma and Aidan climbed higher into the dark woods, every step carried them nearer to dawn or to discovery. Chapter 13. The Woods on Fire. The forest was no longer silent. Torches swung below the slope, beams slicing between trunks like hunting dogs loosed from their leashes. Emma and Aidan scrambled higher, their boots slipping on moss-slick stone, every breath raw in their throats. "Up there, move!"
They're too close. Then we don't outrun them. We break them.
Branches whipped Emma's face as they ran, thorns tearing at coats, roots grabbing at ankles. A shout burst behind them. Torchlight flared, blinding. A figure surged from the trees, a man broad as a bull swinging something heavy in his fist.
Aidan.
Aidan collided with the man, shoulder to chest, the crack of bodies slamming echoing through the pines. The weapon, a length of chain, whipped past Emma's head with a hiss. She ducked, clutching the ledger tighter, stumbling backward as the two men grappled.
Run!
Not without you.
The enforcer slammed Aidan into a tree, chain tightening around his arm. Aidan grunted, teeth bared in pain but twisted, driving his knee into the man's gut. The enforcer snarled, spit flying, and yanked the chain tighter.
Stop it!
Without thinking, Emma swung the ledger like a weapon. The heavy book cracked against the man's temple with a sick thud. He staggered, eyes wide, grip faltering. Aidan tore free, ripping the chain from his hand and swinging it back in a savage arc. The man crumpled, unconscious.
You hit him with the ledger.
I wasn't letting it go. Not to him, not to anyone. Another shout, another light. Two more figures broke through the trees, fast, weapons glinting. Emma and Aidan bolted, feet pounding earth, lungs tearing. The forest tilted downward, opening into a ravine choked with fallen logs and bramble.
Keep low. Use the ground.
The men were close. Branches snapped. Torches glared. One raised his weapon, shotgun stock silhouetted against the torchlight.
Down!
A blast split the night, echoing through the forest, bark shattering from a tree where Emma's head had been seconds before. Splinters bit her cheek.
They'll kill us.
Not if we kill their nerve first. They dived behind a fallen trunk. The enforcers advanced, torches high, shotguns ready. Aidan's eyes flicked to the chain in his hands, then to Emma.
On my signal, run. Don't stop until you hit the road.
I'm not leaving you.
Emma.
We finish this together.
Aidan surged up, chain whistling through the air. It cracked across one enforcer's wrist, the shotgun clattering into the dark. Emma, heart hammering, thrust the locket's lens toward the other. For a heartbeat, the torchlight bent strangely, flares of light scattering, disorienting the man. Now, Aidan barreled into him, both men tumbling into the bramble, snarling and grunting. Emma clutched the ledger and envelope tight, ducked under torchlight, and swung again, this time knocking the fallen shotgun out of reach with a desperate kick.
Emma.
I told you, I'm not leaving. Aidan twisted, forcing the man's head into the dirt until he went limp. The forest fell still again, only the sound of their ragged breaths and the drip of mist from pine needles. But more shouts echoed in the distance, more lights.
They'll keep coming. They'll never stop.
Then we take this to someone who can't be bought. Tonight.
Emma held the ledger tighter, the locket hot against her skin, her body trembling with exhaustion. In the foggy distance, more torches moved like hunting stars through the forest. They weren't safe yet, not even close. We end it before dawn. Chapter 14, The Betrayer's Keepsake. The forest had fallen quiet, but not safe. Emma clutched the ledger and envelope close, her heartbeat thrumming in her ears louder than the wind through pine branches. Aidan wiped blood from his jaw with the back of his hand, eyes fixed on the fog ahead where more lights prowled.
We can't fight them all.
No, but we can learn why they're so certain of us. Someone's feeding them.
He bent to the nearest enforcer, sprawled unconscious in the bramble, chains still tangled around his wrist. Aidan rifled the man's coat with quick, ruthless efficiency.
We don't have time.
We make time. They knew exactly where to corner us. That wasn't chance.
His hand froze inside the man's inner pocket. Slowly, he drew something out, a small, oilcloth-wrapped bundle tied with fraying twine. Aidan's face tightened as he unwrapped it.
What is it?
A locket, smaller than Emma's, tarnished but unmistakable, its back engraved with the same initials, LT. Inside, the photograph was still intact despite years of damp, a girl's profile Emma had seen in the diary margins, her face shy, half-turned. Lillian.
That's hers.
And it's not supposed to be here. How did one of them get it? Unless...
The truth slotted cold between them. This wasn't just a stolen relic. It was proof that someone had betrayed Lillian's hiding places before. Someone close enough to her to take the locket she'd once worn and hand it over to her killers. She had a circle, someone she trusted, and they sold her out. And now they're doing the same to us. The unconscious enforcer stirred faintly, groaning. Aidan pressed him back down with a knee, chain biting against bark. Who gave you this?
Orders came down the line, said the girl left more than one key. Said An old friend showed us where to look.
An old friend. She wore her locket, like yours, smiled when she handed it over, said better the house keep it than the tide.
Emma staggered back, bile rising. Another locket, another woman. Someone Lillian trusted had not only betrayed her but lived long enough to pass that treachery on.
Martha, she told us, don't let anyone borrow your eyes. Was that a warning or a confession?
Or someone else close to her, someone who survived and chose the wrong side. Or someone else close died.
The enforcer sagged unconscious again, lips sealed. The locket in Aidan's hand gleamed dully, Lillian's face inside watching them across decades.
We won't let them use you again.
Then we need to know who carried this first, and whether they're still alive.
Above them, torches moved closer, voices echoing through the trees. The betrayal sat heavy between Emma and Aidan now, heavier than the ledger itself. If Lillian's circle had cracked once, it could crack again, and the traitor's shadow was still guiding Julian's men, even if Julian himself had drowned. Someone in this village sold her out, and they're still selling us. Chapter 15. Ashes of Trust. Dawn's first smear of gray light cut through the fog as Emma and Aidan stumbled out of the woods. Their clothes were torn, faces bloodied, the ledger clutched tight against Emma's chest. In Aidan's pocket, the smaller locket weighed like lead. The world was damp, raw, and full of breathless silence after the hunt.
We take this straight to her. No waiting, no hiding. She needs to see. And if she's the one who can't be trusted,
Then we'll know soon enough. Then we'll know soon enough.
The fluorescent buzz of D.I. Elwyn Price's station felt wrong after the damp hush of the tunnels, but Emma almost sagged with relief as the heavy doors shut behind them. Uniforms turned, eyes widening at the sight of the two. Mud-soaked, bleeding, eyes wide with exhaustion and fire.
My God, what the hell happened to you?
we found it. Arthur Trevelyan's ledger, and something else, something worse.
Minutes later, the three of them sat beneath the cold hum of a strip light. Emma laid the ledger on the table like a weapon. Beside it, Aidan dropped the smaller locket with a sharp clink.
Another locket.
Not hers, not Emma's, but identical, and it carried her face inside. He had it, one of Julian's men. He said it came from an old friend of hers, someone she trusted, someone who gave it to them. The weight of that accusation pressed the room flat. Price leaned forward, eyes narrowing, hands folded over the ledger.
You're saying she was betrayed?
Yes, someone close, someone alive, maybe someone still here. Price's jaw tightened, a flicker of something unreadable flashing across her face. She opened the ledger with careful hands, scanning the neat, damning entries. Her pen tapped twice against the table before she looked up.
This is dynamite. If half of it stands in court, the Trevelyan name collapses. But if your story about the second locket gets out without proof...
We do have proof. It exists. We found it in his pocket.
And if it was planted? If it was meant to turn you against the people you need to trust?
Don't you dare spin this back on us. Lillian was betrayed. I won't let her be betrayed again.
The room held the weight of centuries of lies and a fresh, raw fear. Price exhaled, pinched the bridge of her nose, then leaned forward again, her voice quieter.
If there's a traitor, we flush them out. Quietly. You leave the locket with me, you leave the ledger here, and you let me run this.
And if you're wrong?
Then I burn for it.
Emma's stomach twisted. She wanted to believe Elwyn Price, wanted to trust the sharp intelligence and the steel spine, but she remembered the enforcer's words. An old friend, she wore her locket, smiled when she handed it over.
What if it's someone you know? Someone in your team? Then they'll regret breathing.
The ledger lay between them, the locket glinting faintly in the fluorescent light. Outside, the world stirred with the first noise of morning, cars, gulls, a kettle whistling somewhere. But inside this room, trust had become as fragile as glass.
Lillian trusted the wrong person once. I won't.
Price's eyes flicked to Emma's, unreadable, calculating. For the first time, Emma wondered if she had just placed the truth into the hands of the very person who might bury it. Chapter 16. The house roars back. By the time Emma and Aidan left the interview room, the station was humming with the early tide of phones, printers, and footsteps. Outside, dawn had clawed its way across the sky, pale and unforgiving. Emma carried the weight of exhaustion like an anchor, but when she saw the television flickering in the station's reception, her blood turned to ice.
In breaking news, the Trevelyan family has released a statement condemning what they describe as malicious fabrications intended to damage one of Cornwall's most historic estates. The statement, signed by Lady Margaret Trevelyan, calls recent accusations the work of fringe agitators and a disgraced academic.
Aidan stiffened at Emma's side. His name was on the ticker below the screen, scrolling across national news. They're already spinning it. They named you.
Disgraced academic. That didn't take long. Disgrace Mong.
A uniformed constable hurried across with a printed email hot from the fax line. D.I. Price skimmed it once, jaw tightening, then slapped it down on the counter.
The Trevelyans have filed for an injunction. They're trying to lock this ledger down before we can even process it. But they can't.
With their lawyers, they can try, and they've CC'd half the Home Office.
Phones were ringing now, one after another. Outside the windows, news vans were already parking up, dishes swiveling. Reporters spilled out with cameras, shouting questions into the fogged morning air.
Miss Whittaker, is it true you broke into Trevelyan House? Mr. Merrick, do you have ties to political groups trying to seize private land?
They're turning it around. They're making us the criminals.
That's how dynasties work. They write the script before anyone else picks up a pen.
Price stood at the glass, shoulders rigid, her reflection pale in the morning light. She didn't turn when she spoke.
This just stopped being a police matter. It's political now. Every step we take, every page we log, they'll counter with PR and lawyers. You two are in their sights, and they'll use the press to break you before we can build a case.
Then we fight louder. No, you survive louder. That ledger is evidence. It stays here. You go to ground until I call you.
That's hiding.
That's living.
Emma felt every eye in the station prickling her skin. Uniforms whispering, phones flashing, the news cycle already grinding. She knew if she stepped outside, her face would be plastered across every screen in Cornwall by noon.
They're making us the villains.
Then we prove them wrong, but we'll need more than one ledger to topple a dynasty. Emma turned back toward the interview room, toward the ledger on the table, Lillian's envelope beside it. Through the glass, she swore she saw the faint shimmer of the lens again, a flicker across the page as though Lillian herself urged her on.
If they want war, they've got it.
Outside, the Trevelyan crest fluttered on banners hung hastily across the estate's gates. The house had roared back, and now the whole country was listening. Chapter 17. The Second Cache. The station was a hive of noise. Phones buzzing, printers spitting, officers muttering as news bulletins blared Trevelyan denials. But Emma couldn't hear any of it. She stood at the glass of interview room 2, staring at the ledger, at the envelope, at the faint shimmer she alone could see.
You're not finished, are you?
What is it?
The lens, it's pulling, like it's showing me there's more.
She unclasped the locket, pressed the crystal over the last page of Arthur's ledger. Words bled faint across the paper. Not Arthur's hand, but Lillian's, written decades later in a finer feminine script.
If you've come this far, you've only seen half. He wrote his lies in one book, but I made sure there was another. A place they'd never think to search. Not in the house above, but below, where the sea and blood meet.
Another cache. She hit a second record.
Price appeared in the doorway, arms folded, expression sharp.
What did you just find?
Proof there's more. Another hiding place, somewhere below the house, where the sea and blood meet.
You realize if you chase this, you're doing exactly what Julian's people want, pushing deeper until you drown. Literally.
Or we finish what Lillian started. Right now, all we have is one ledger. They'll bury it in court. But if there's a second record, if her voice matches his, then they can't smother both.
Emma pressed the lens harder, forcing the words to flare brighter. The script curled into coordinates, rough numbers that made Aidan's eyes narrow with recognition.
That's the old crypt site, beneath the Trevelyan Chapel ruins, long abandoned, caved in after the war. Nobody's walked those stones in 50 years.
She left it where the sea creeps under the cliff, a crypt flooded with tide, where blood meets salt. That place is unstable, dangerous, and crawling distance from the estate. You walk in there, You might not walk back. Then we make sure it's worth it.
As Emma folded the locket closed, she thought she heard a faint echo, Lillian's voice, carried like a tide through stone. "Find me where they buried the bones. Don't let them drink without me." Emma shivered, but her jaw set.
We're going to find you.
Outside, reporters clamored at the station gates, cameras flashing, the Trevelyan crest flying above them all. But beneath those polished walls and painted banners, another truth still waited. Salt-stained, bone-deep, hidden where sea and blood met. And Emma knew she would have to crawl into it before the family buried her too. Chapter 18. The Chapel Beneath the Sea. The ruins of St. Bartholomew's Chapel clung to the cliff like the bones of a drowned bird. Only fragments remained. An archway snapped in half, a tower stump with ivy strangling its crown, and a scatter of moss-wet gravestones tilting into the earth. The sea churned below, restless, slapping hard against the cliff base as if it too remembered what lay buried there. Emma stood in the shadow of the ruin, the locket warm against her collarbone. Aidan beside her checked his headlamp, jaw tight, face drawn with fatigue and bruises. Behind them, D.I. Elowen Price crouched over a weathered stone slab, map spread on her knee, her torch beam cutting clean lines in the mist. The crypt entrance should be under this slab. Records show it collapsed in 44. Smugglers might have used it after, but nobody's gone down since. It's unstable.
Everything in this family is unstable.
This is where she wanted us. It's here.
The slab was cracked down the center. Ropes and crowbars groaned as Aidan and Price levered it aside. Damp air burst upwards, smelling of salt, mold, and something old, stone soaked with centuries of grief. Beneath yawned a stairwell slick with algae, its stone steps spiraling down into darkness.
Where sea and blood meet.
We go slow, and if the tide comes in, we don't argue, we climb.
Move.
Their boots slapped on wet stone as they descended, light bouncing across walls etched with faint carvings. Angels with broken faces, a lamb with its throat marked by an old crack, crosses warped by salt. The deeper they went, the louder the sea became, rumbling just beyond the wall like an animal pacing its cage. Emma raised the lens. Words ghosted along the stone.
They built on bones. They drank on bones. If you hear the sea, you are close. Keep the mirror with you. Do not turn your back to the water.
That's not an instruction. That's a warning.
The stairwell spat them into a vaulted chamber half swallowed by the tide. Seafoam licked the floor, retreating and advancing with each pull of the water. Broken coffins lay stacked against one wall, wood long rotted, iron nails rusting to powder. Bones gleamed pale where waves had washed the lids away. At the far end, an altar tilted against the wall, its top cracked clean in two. Beneath it gaped a stone recess, bricked in clumsily at some later date. And carved above it, the Trevelyan crest.
This is it. This is where she left it.
Or where they hid it after they killed her.
Get me tools. We open that wall.
The sea crashed harder, sloshing ankle-deep now as they prized at the bricks. One came free, then another. Salt water burst out with the last, gushing across their boots. Inside the recess sat a small iron coffer, its surface eaten with rust, a faint wax seal still clinging to its lid. Emma lifted the lens, words flared across the seal.
For the one who listens, do not let them drink on bones again.
Aidan eased the coffer free, the tide immediately gnawing at the space it had filled. He set it on the altar, breathing hard. Emma's hands shook as she pressed the lens against its rusted lid.
Lillian, guide us.
The seal gave with a faint sigh, wax crumbling under her fingers. Inside the coffer, bundles of papers had been wrapped in oilskin. Despite damp, they remained legible. Pages of names, payments, dates, receipts of bribes, records of threats, names crossed out, others underlined, and beneath them, a bundle of photographs sealed in wax paper.
It's everything. She wrote everything down.
Not just Arthur, his successors, every payment, every witness silenced.
This could topple half the county council.
A sound cracked through the chamber, stone grinding above, heavy feet on the stair. Voices barked orders, torches slicing down into the dark. They followed us. We're trapped.
Then we make them bleed for every step.
The tide surged higher, water slapping against Emma's knees. The coffer dripped salt from its edges. Above, Trevelyan men poured into the stairwell, their lights striking bone and foam in blinding flashes, and in Emma's hand the locket burned hot, as though Lillian herself screamed a warning. We don't let them bury her again. Chapter 19. Voices in the Flood. The crypt shuddered with each crash of the tide, the sea clawing higher across the stone floor. Foam licked their knees now, salt stinging cuts and bruises. The iron coffer sat on the altar like a heart dug out of the cliff, dripping and defiant. Emma's knuckles whitened around it, the locket burning against her skin. Above, torchlight spilled down the spiral stair. Shadows grew, stretching long across coffins and bones. Then the men came, Trevelyan enforcers in dark coats, boots hammering the steps. But instead of rushing forward, they stopped, their leader raising one hand.
No shooting, not yet.
That's new.
They don't want blood. Not here.
The captain stepped into the floodlight of their torches. His face was lean, hard-lined, but his voice held a disarming evenness. You've found what you think is truth. Ledgers, letters, lies on paper. But ask yourself, what will you do with them? Walk into court? Show them to the press? You'll be drowned in injunctions before you leave the steps of this chapel.
Funny, that's exactly what a guilty man says.
Miss Whitaker, you're clever, stubborn, brave even. But you're also naive. The Trevelyan name survived a war, scandals, betrayals. It won't fall because you hold a wet box in your hands. Hand it over and you walk away, alive, with enough money to vanish where they'll never touch you again. The tide surged higher, biting at Emma's thighs. The chapel seemed to inhale with each wave, walls groaning like a throat about to close.
She's not selling out, not like whoever gave you that locket.
An old friend smiled as she handed it over. Exactly. People closer to Lillian than you realize the same thing. The house can't be beaten. They chose survival. So can you. You don't have to drown here.
Emma's grip on the coffer shook. For a breath, the offer painted itself bright. Escape, safety, quiet, a life not spent hunted. But the locket seared hotter, the lens flaring. She lifted it, and through its shimmer she saw the captain's reflection in the black tide. Not calm, not composed, but twisted with greed, his hand twitching for the coffer. You want it because you know it can break you. It will break you first. Funny, you sound like a man who's already lost. The captain's men shifted uneasily in the stairwell, water slapping higher around their boots. One muttered under his breath. Another kept glancing back toward the surface. Fear gnawed at them, not of Emma, but of the crypt itself, the tide rising too fast.
Every second you waste here, the sea takes another step. Who do you think it'll claim first? Us with nothing to lose? Or you, chained to a family built on lies?
One of the men swore, retreating a step. Another shoved him, angry, but the fear was spreading. The captain barked a command, but his voice faltered. Lillian marked everything. Names, dates, payments. Your families are in these pages too. Do you want to drown protecting men who would sell you for a sovereign like they sold her? The crypt stilled, save for the roar of the sea. The captain's mask of calm fractured further, a snarl creeping through his teeth. His men hesitated, torches trembling.
You'll regret that.
The tide surged chest high now, the crypt a lungful from collapse. Emma clutched the coffer, her body shaking, but her voice steady, carrying above the water's roar.
I'd rather drown with the truth than live with your lies.
The captain's hand twitched toward his weapon, but his men shifted, uncertain, wavering. The water rose, the crypt groaned, and Emma realized the sea itself might decide who lived long enough to carry Lillian's truth into daylight. Chapter 20. A Crack in the Wall. The crypt swelled with the tide, black water slapping stone, rising past their waists. Torches jittered, beams slicing across skulls and coffins, making the dead look restless. The Trevelyan captain stood firm on the stair, but the men behind him were wavering, fear gnawing at discipline. Hold your ground, take the coffer and end this.
You'll drown before you touch it.
Look at him. He'll let you all die for their lies. Lillian wrote your names in this book too. How much did they pay your fathers to stay silent? How much will they pay your sons when you're bones like these?
One of the younger enforcers faltered, torch trembling in his hand. His eyes darted to the ledger under Emma's arm, then to the captain.
Sir, she's right. This isn't just Trevelyan. They bought everyone. My uncle, his name's in there. I saw it once in the house records.
Shut your mouth.
Listen to him. He's braver than the rest of you. How many of you are standing in salt water to protect a family that would trade you for a coin? How many of you already have? Murmurs rippled through the group. Another man shifted back a step, his torch beam dipping. The captain's fury rose sharper, but his command no longer rang iron.
Cowards! Do you think they'll save you? Do you think you'll walk free if you let them live?
I think I'd rather live than drown here for lies.
He tore the torch from his belt and waded forward, splashing toward Emma, raising his free hand. Not for violence, but surrender.
Take me with you. Get this out. I'll testify.
The captain's face twisted, real fury cracking through the mask. He reached for his weapon, but one of the other men grabbed his arm, holding him back. Chaos fractured the line, shouts colliding with the crash of the sea. We've got a chance, take it.
We don't leave him.
Then move, all of you.
Water surged chest high as they staggered toward the stair. The younger enforcer pushed through first, shoving others aside, torch beam cutting wildly. Price covered the rear, pistol raised, her jaw clenched like iron. Behind them, the captain roared, fury swallowed by the tide. The house will never fall. Do you hear me? Never. Emma stumbled onto the first steps of the spiral, water dragging at her legs, the coffer's weight brutal in her arms. The younger enforcer hauled her up, breathless, terrified, but alive. Aidan followed, dragging Price by the elbow. The crypt groaned, stone trembling under the tide's assault. Bones bobbed in the black water, torchlight dancing across skulls like faces that had waited decades for this night.
We're not just carrying truth anymore. We're carrying ghosts.
Behind them, the roar of the sea filled the chamber, devouring the Trevelyan captain's shouts until nothing but water remained. Chapter 21. The Turncoat's Oath. They burst from the stairwell into the ruins of the chapel, the sky above pale and bruised with dawn. Emma stumbled on the slick grass, the coffer heavy against her chest, seawater streaming from her coat. Aidan dragged himself up beside her, ribs aching, every muscle raw. Behind them, D.I. Elowen Price emerged last, pistol still raised, her jaw set like iron. The younger enforcer, boy really, no more than 25, stood apart, chest heaving, torch thrown aside. His soaked coat clung to him, and in his eyes lived the wild terror of someone who had finally broken rank.
On your knees, hands where I can see them.
I'm not here to fight you. I swear it. I want out.
Convenient, right when the tide turns.
Emma clutched the coffer tighter, water dripping from its corners. The boy looked up at her, face pale but earnest. My uncle was one of them. His name's in that ledger, I know it. I grew up watching them drink and sneer and act untouchable. They told me to serve, to shut my mouth, to never question. But I'm done. I'll testify. I'll stand against them.
Why should we believe you? You carried Lillian's locket in your pocket. You marched with them. Because I was born into it, and I'm trying not to die in it. Please.
Aidan's eyes narrowed, suspicion cutting deep. Price circled, pistol steady, scanning him the way she might scan a crime scene.
He's Trevelyan to the bone. He's been raised to keep them alive. He'll betray us the second the house whistles. Or he's the first crack in their armor, one we can use.
Lillian trusted the wrong friend once. I can't.
Then don't trust me. Use me. Put me on the stand. Put me in front of a camera. Let me tell the world what I've seen. Just don't leave me to them.
The wind knifed through the chapel ruins. The sea roared below, pulling back as if nothing had happened. Emma felt the locket burn hot against her skin, the lens shimmering faint. She raised it, almost without thought, and pointed it at the boy's face. Through the crystal, his reflection sharpened, and words shimmered faintly across his brow. Lillian's writing again, a ghost of judgment left for the future.
He carries their blood, but not their heart. If he chooses, let him stand, but never give him the mirror.
The boy sagged forward, tears slipping down his face. Aidan exhaled hard, torn between contempt and reluctant belief. Price's eyes narrowed, weighing every syllable.
Fine. You want out? Then you're in custody. You speak under my roof, on my record. No deals, no bargaining. You're a witness now. and God help you if you're lying.
I'll tell everything. I'll burn them down with you.
Then maybe Lillian didn't die for nothing.
The ruin creaked as gulls screamed above, dawn light cutting across broken stone. Around them, the house loomed distant but defiant, banners still flying. For the first time, Emma felt the Trevelyan dynasty tremble, not from the tide, but from within. And she knew the fight was only just beginning. Chapter 22, No Safe Harbor. The ride back to the station was supposed to feel safe. Blue lights flashing, sirens cutting the dawn, Price in the lead car, Emma and Aidan in the back with the younger enforcer cuffed beside them. The coffer and ledger rode locked in the boot, heavy as anchors. But Emma never shook the prickle at the base of her neck. The sense that safety was a story she was being told, not reality.
They won't wait for a courtroom. They'll hit us before we can open that box to the world.
Then we stay alive long enough to open it anyway. The convoy cut through a narrow coastal lane, high hedgerows hemming them in, sea wind tugging at the siren wail. That's when the first car appeared. Black, heavy, blocking the bend.
Shit, roadblock.
Another car slammed from behind, headlights glaring through the rear window. Metal screamed. Their cruiser lurched forward, trapped between the two.
It's them.
Hold on.
Men poured from the front car, masks over their faces, iron bars and chains glinting in the dawn. The rear doors cracked open behind them, more shadows spilling into the lane. The Trevelyans hadn't sent lawyers this time. They'd sent wolves. The driver gunned the engine, metal shrieking as their car rammed the blockade. Sparks flew. Price's lead vehicle spun sideways, sirens blaring, officers leaping out with weapons drawn. Gunshots cracked, muffled but close. Glass burst in the rear window, shards raining over Emma's hair. The younger enforcer flinched, curling against the seat, wrists straining in the cuffs.
We're pinned. They're not stopping until they've got the box. They're not stopping twas in Hindaleth.
The driver threw the car hard left into a farm track hidden in the hedgerow. Mud splattered, tires skidding. The black vehicles roared behind, headlights stabbing through trees.
Unit 2, break off and shield the cargo. Get them out now.
That's us, we're the cargo.
Then we run like hell.
The farm track twisted downhill, gravel spraying, dawn slicing gold across fields. Behind, engines howled closer, the wolves relentless. Emma's heartbeat thudded against the coffer, the locket scalding hot against her chest. Don't let them take it. Don't let them bury you again. Ahead, the lane forked, one path into open road, one down toward the sea cliffs where the mist still clung. The driver swore, headlights flickering across stone walls closing fast.
Emma, choose road or cliffs.
Cliffs! The car swerved, tires screaming, as the convoy of black Trevelyan vehicles bore down on them. The sea wind howled through the broken glass, and Emma realized the house would not stop until either it drowned her or she drowned it. Chapter 23, The Edge of the World. The cruiser screamed down the narrow cliff road, tires spitting gravel into the misty void. On one side, gorse tore at the doors. On the other, the cliff dropped sheer into the boiling sea. The younger enforcer was pressed against the seat, eyes wide with terror. Emma gripped the coffer across her lap, every jolt threatening to rip it from her arms. Behind them, the Trevelyan convoy surged closer, black cars with headlights glaring, engines snarling like wolves that had scented blood. They're not letting us out of this alive.
Then we give them something to choke on.
A shot cracked. The rear window exploded, shards flying. Emma ducked, clutching the coffer tighter. The driver swore, wrestling the wheel as another car rammed their flank, forcing them closer to the cliff edge.
They'll run us straight off. Hold them, Unit 3, block their rear.
One patrol car tried to swerve behind the Trevelyans, but it clipped the verge and spun, colliding with a hedge in a bloom of sparks. The convoy pressed forward, relentless.
We can't outrun them on this road.
Then we take them with us. And take them for. The road curved sharp, hugging the cliff. The lead Trevelyan car surged alongside, its masked driver jerking the wheel to slam them off course. Metal screamed as doors locked, tires spat fire on stone. The cliff edge yawned inches away, foam crashing far below. Emma looked down, heart in her throat. The sea waited, black and endless.
Emma, don't even think. We'll never keep the coffer if they take us back. Better the tide than the house.
The Trevelyan car rammed again, harder. Their cruiser lurched, wheels skidding over loose shale. The driver fought the wheel, cursing, but gravity had already chosen sides.
Brace.
The world flipped. Steel screamed as the cruiser broke free of the road, the cliff edge crumbling beneath its weight. For one suspended breath, Emma saw the black convoy lights receding, the sea widening below like an open mouth. "Lillian, guide us." The car hit water like stone, shattering glass, tearing breath from lungs. Salt and cold swallowed them whole, dragging the cruiser down into darkness. Emma's arms locked around the coffer, the locket burning against her chest, her scream lost to the sea. Mareem lost to the sea. Darkness closed over their heads, bubbles roaring like thunder. The coffer threatened to slip, the tide tearing at it. Emma fought, lungs burning, Aidan's hand clutching hers in the blind cold. Somewhere above, dawn light fractured on the waves, and deep below, Emma thought she heard it again. A voice in the water, faint and relentless. Do not let them drink again. Chapter 24. Cast ashore. The sea crushed them in its fist. Black water churned with shattered glass, twisting metal, and the shriek of a dying engine. Emma's lungs burned, the coffer's weight dragging her down into the dark. She kicked again, her arms aching as she clung to it, but the tide wanted her, wanted everything. A hand seized hers, Aidan's, strong, insistent. He pulled, dragging her upward. The younger enforcer flailed nearby, his wrists still bound by half-broken cuffs. Di Price's torch beam flickered once in the water, then vanished into the boiling dark.
Don't let go. Not of him. Not of this.
With a roar in her ears and fire in her chest, Emma's head burst through the surface. She gasped, coughing salt, waves hammering her back toward the cliff face. The coffer bobbed heavy in her grip, each wave threatening to wrench it free. Aidan surfaced beside her, blood running from his temple, one hand hauling the younger enforcer upward.
Swim with the tide, not against it. The coffer.
You've got it. Now live.
The tide flung them sideways into a narrow cleft in the cliffs, a channel where foam surged but did not crush. Rocks tore at their clothes, but the sea for once seemed to spit them out instead of swallow them. Emma struck sand hard, coffer first, then rolled onto her side, coughing seawater until her ribs screamed. The younger enforcer sprawled nearby, shivering, wrists raw. Aidan staggered upright, dragging Price from the surf, her pistol gone, but her eyes blazing with a soldier's fury even half drowned.
Everyone move before they circle back.
We made it. Lillian. August small Pawnee House small.
The roar of engines still thundered above, muffled but close. The Trevelyans hadn't seen them fall to their deaths. They'd know to search. The lane above would be crawling with men, scanning the shoreline.
They'll come down, they'll sweep the rocks. Then we disappear before they do.
We're not losing it now. Not to them. Not to the sea. We'll crawl if we have to.
The four of them staggered along the narrow beach, foam clawing their heels, the cliff looming high and unforgiving above. Emma felt the locket pulse against her chest, hot as a brand, and in the roar of the tide she thought she heard the faintest whisper again. You lived. Now use it.
I will.
Behind them, black cars prowled the cliff road. Searchlights swept the waves. The house would not rest until the truth was buried. But Emma knew, this time, they were closer than ever to tearing it open. Chapter 25. Refuge in the Hollow. They limped along the narrow strip of sand until the cliffs opened into a hollow, half-collapsed from storms. Driftwood piled in the corner, seaweed strewn like discarded ropes. It wasn't safe, but it was cover, a pocket in the land where the roar of the surf might mask their breathing. Emma staggered into the shadow first. The iron coffer clutched so tight her forearms ached. Her legs buckled, and she dropped to her knees, coughing salt, eyes blurred from tears she hadn't realized were spilling. Aidan collapsed beside her, pressing a hand to the cut on his temple. D.I. Price crouched at the entrance, pistol across her lap, eyes sharp to the cliff above. The younger enforcer huddled further back, shivering, wrists still raw from the cuffs.
We're alive. God, we're still alive.
Barely, but I'll take it. For the first time in hours, silence spread between them. The storm of pursuit muted under the hollow's roof. Emma laid the coffer down on a sheet of kelp, fingers trembling as she touched the seal again. We have both now, his lies, her truth.
Enough to break the house in two.
If you live long enough to put it in front of someone who matters.
The younger enforcer shifted, eyes darting between them. He hugged his knees, wet hair plastered to his forehead.
You don't understand. Once they know I turned, there's no going back. I'm dead to them already. If I testify, if you put me in front of cameras, they'll kill my family, my mother, my brother.
And if you don't, they'll kill us.
Maybe both are true. Enough. You want it out. You're out. You testify. That's the only way you live. Fear won't buy you a future, boy.
Emma touched the locket to the coffer. The lens shimmered faintly, catching the dawn light that seeped into the hollow. For an instant, words glowed across the lid.
Truth endures where fear falters. She closed her eyes, the message sinking into her bones. Lillian's voice, still guiding, still burning.
We won't falter, not this time.
Aidan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his voice steadier than his body.
We can't go back to the station. They'll have eyes on it, and we can't walk into the village with this thing in our arms. Then we move inland, safe house near Bodmin, old intelligence site, no one left to compromise it. We regroup there.
And then
we take the fight to them.
Emma cradled the coffer again, salt water dripping from its seams. The sea crashed outside, restless, as though the world itself warned them it would not grant them much time. Above, searchlights still prowled the cliffs, beams cutting through the fog like spears. Emma tightened her grip, heart steadying. The house wanted us drowned. Instead, we'll drag it under. The hollow felt smaller suddenly, not refuge, but the eye of a storm. Morning had broken, and with it, the last illusion of safety. Chapter 26, The Bodmin Hollow. By mid-morning, they were inland, away from the cliffs, away from the sea's roar. The police convoy had been whittled to just one battered vehicle, D.I. Price driving in silence through twisting moorland lanes. Mist rolled across Bodmin like smoke, cloaking the tors in ghostly shapes. The place carried a hush, ancient and watchful, as if the land itself remembered old blood. Emma sat in the back, the coffer across her lap like a child she couldn't set down. Aidan leaned against the window, eyes swollen with fatigue but still restless, scanning hedgerows as if expecting Trevelyan eyes at every turn. The younger enforcer hunched in the far corner, pale and shaking, chains replaced with plastic ties. It doesn't feel lighter, even now. Truth never is. They reached it just after noon, a squat granite farmhouse, window shutters bolted, its roof sagging under moss. It had the look of abandonment, but Price moved with the surety of someone returning to old ground. She unlocked the door with a heavy key, pushed inside, and the smell of dust and old papers enveloped them.
This was a listening post, Cold War days. GCHQ ran it until '86, then walked away. Power still works, signal doesn't. That's the point.
A house built on silence.
Just our luck.
They set the coffer on a table scarred with old cigarette burns. The ledger lay beside it, swollen with damp but intact. The two artifacts sat there like adversaries forced into truce. His lies, her truth. Emma lit the single lamp in the room, its glow falling across both. We have everything. Now we make it impossible for them to bury it again.
We'll scan, duplicate, secure, not on police servers. They'd choke it before it uploaded. We go dark until the moment it goes live. Then we burn them all at once.
And if they find us first, then you never see tomorrow.
The younger enforcer shifted in his chair, voice cracking. You don't get it. The Trevelyans own half the county. They own men in uniforms, in wigs, and pulpits. You think a video will stop them? It won't. It'll just paint bigger targets on your backs.
Then we make the target too big to ignore. A bonfire, not a spark.
Lillian gave her life for this. We can't stop now.
Evening fell slow, the moorland mist wrapping the farmhouse in silence. Emma sat at the table, tracing her fingers over the ledger's edges. She opened it once more, letting the lens flare. Lillian's hand glowed faint across a final page, words meant for the one who reached this far.
The house will hunt you, but if you stand in the open, the tide cannot touch you. Speak it where all can hear. That is the only way.
She's telling us to go public, not courts, not back rooms, straight to the people.
Then we need to choose our moment, and we need to survive long enough to reach it. The farmhouse creaked, the moor wind howling like a warning. Emma pressed the locket to her chest, feeling its heat pulse against her skin. The coffer and ledger sat together, silent but volatile, the kind of truth that could bring down dynasties or bury them all beneath them.
We'll speak it, no matter what it costs.
In the silence that followed, none of them noticed the faint click outside, the crunch of boots in wet gravel. The house was not as hidden as Price believed. Chapter 27. How to Break a Dynasty. The farmhouse hummed faintly with old wires and wind, its silence deeper than safety. They gathered around the scarred oak table where the coffer and ledger lay, relics heavy as anchors. A single lamp threw their faces into hard shadow. Emma traced the edge of Lillian's envelope, the locket burning faintly against her chest.
Courts are compromised. Politicians won't touch it. If we go official, it dies before it breathes. That leaves one path. Broadcast. Speak it where all can hear. That's what she wrote.
Price unfolded a map, her finger jabbing at marks across Cornwall.
There are pirate towers still standing on this coast, relay sites used for illegal CB in the 90s, one at Hensbarrow, another near Goonhilly. If we piggyback the signal, we can push video across local feeds, enough to go viral in an hour.
Old tech against a family with satellites.
The Trevelyans are fast at killing stories. They're slower at killing millions of eyes at once.
Then we do it. Lillian's words, Arthur's confessions, the payments, the names, everything. We burn them with their own history. We mamus precise pour.
The younger enforcer shifted in his chair, pale, fingers twisting his bindings. You think they'll let that happen? You think a stream won't be cut before the second sentence? They'll pull the plug, shut down lines, black out the county.
Maybe, but if the fire's lit, others carry it. People share what they see. They can't stop every screen. And we'll make sure my face is there. So when they try to silence me, everyone knows who they're killing. No martyrdom. We survive this. We don't die for it. We live to twist the knife deeper.
Emma opened the coffer, pulling out Lillian's oilskin bundles. She spread the papers like cards across the table. Dates, bribes, signatures, threats. She laid the ledger beside them, its handwriting damning. The two together painted a dynasty in rot.
We show them side by side, his lies, her truth, the ledger and the letter, so the world sees both, the lion and the lamb.
And the people decide who to believe.
We record here, tonight, off-grid. Then we move to Hensbarrow by dawn. Once it's out for good.
The farmhouse creaked, wind rattling shutters. Emma touched the lens to one of Lillian's final pages. The words shimmered, ghost handwriting curling across the paper.
The house built on bones will fall in the open. Do not whisper, shout, do not hide, stand. That is how the lion dies.
She knew this day would come.
Then will be her voice. The plan lay between them now. Record, broadcast, expose. But outside, boots pressed damp gravel. A torch beam flickered across the shutter, gone as quick as it came. None of them noticed. Not yet. The house was already listening. Chapter 28, Siege in the Silence. The farmhouse was holding its breath. The lamp over the table hummed faintly, casting the ledger and coffer in a circle of light. Emma leaned in, ready to speak Lillian's words into the recorder, when the power cut with a snap. The lamp went black. The hum died. For a moment, there was only darkness and the rasp of Emma's breath.
That wasn't a fuse.
They've cut us. A beam of light swept across the shuttered window, then another. Boots crunched on gravel outside. The farmhouse groaned under the weight of bodies surrounding it. A voice carried through the door. Too calm, too close.
You've got something that doesn't belong to you. Hand it out and you walk away. Keep it and you won't walk at all.
They've found us.
Then we make them regret it.
Price moved like lightning, flicking open a hidden compartment in the wall, dragging out an old carbine wrapped in oilcloth. She tossed Aidan a rusted pistol from the drawer, then pressed her back to the door. This house was built for listening. It'll hold long enough for fighting. And if it doesn't,
then we bury them here with us.
The first impact rattled the shutters, wood cracking under iron bars. Glass shattered, a hail of shards raining across the floor. The younger enforcer yelped, ducking behind the table, his wrists tugging at the ties.
They'll kill us all. Give them the box.
Shut your mouth before I make you.
We don't give them anything. Not now. Not ever.
Another crash, this time the back door buckling inward. A silhouette loomed in the doorway, torch beams slashing across the room. Price fired once, the crack deafening in the enclosed space. The figure dropped, torch clattering to the floor, its beams spilling across Emma's pale face.
They're not stopping.
Neither are we. Neither are we.
Outside, more voices shouted, orders barked, boots pounding against stone. The farmhouse was surrounded, every wall a drum under their assault. Inside, Emma pressed the coffer tighter against her chest, the locket burning so hot she thought it might brand her skin. Through its lens, faint words shimmered across the blackness of the table.
Stand, Hyde.
The walls shook again as the Trevelyan loyalists pressed harder. The siege had begun, and Emma knew the farmhouse might become their last stand, unless they found a way to turn the truth into a weapon before the walls caved in. Chapter 29. Fire in the Farmhouse. The farmhouse shuddered as the next wave hit. Iron bars smashing shutters, glass raining inward, beams of torchlight slashing the dark like knives. Gunfire cracked, splinters flying from the doorframe. The old house moaned under the siege, but it stood, just like an old fighter refusing to fall.
Positions, don't let them through.
On it.
Tell me what to do.
Keep that coffer close and keep your head lower than the windows, and you smimes more.
The back door blew inward, splinters spraying. A masked enforcer charged through, shotgun raised. Aidan fired first, rusted pistol bucking, the shot wide but enough to throw the man off balance. Price's carbine barked a second later, precise and final. The intruder dropped.
God.
Don't look, just breathe. More figures swarmed through the gap. Shadows darted across the floor, torch beams blinding. Emma pressed herself against the table leg, the coffer beneath her arms, the locket flaring so hot she swore she heard a voice whisper, "Stand." She rose halfway, lens clutched in her hand. Its light caught one of the attackers in the eyes. He stumbled, shouting, clawing at his mask as if burned. Emma again.
You'll never bury her.
The man fled backward into his comrades, scattering the line for a breath. Gunfire tore holes in the wall where Emma had been standing a second before. She dropped, heart pounding, but her defiance had rattled them. When one rattled them, one broke through, an axe raised high, eyes wild. He lunged straight at Aidan. The two collided, the weapon scraping the floor. They wrestled, boots pounding the boards, until Aidan drove him against the wall and wrenched the axe free. With a snarl, he swung back, the blow shattering plaster instead of bone as the man ducked away.
Down.
I'm not leaving you. Price fired again, sharp and controlled, dropping another man. Her voice was cold iron through the chaos. They're breaking. Keep pressure. And it was true. The loyalists faltered, shouts muddled with panic, torches jerking. Some dragged bodies back toward the broken doorway, cover fire scattering across the walls.
They weren't ready for a fight like this.
Good. Then let's make them run. Smoke curled in from the kitchen, acrid, heavy. A new tactic. They were trying to burn them out. Flames licked the edge of the wooden beams, orange glows slashing the shadows.
They're setting the house alight.
Then we end this now, or we die in here with the truth. The farmhouse was turning into a furnace, walls groaning, windows blazing with firelight. Emma pressed the coffer to her chest, heart hammering as the tide of flames closed in. The siege wasn't just survival anymore. It was a race against fire. Chapter 30. Fire into the snare. Smoke curled thick through the farmhouse, stinging eyes, filling lungs. Flames licked the kitchen doorway, crackling like hungry teeth. Emma coughed hard, pressing the coffer against her ribs, the iron burning cold while everything else burned hot.
We can't hold. The whole place is going. That's the point. They're driving us out.
If we stay, we choke. If we run into them.
Boards groaned overhead, sparks raining as the ceiling sagged. The younger enforcer pressed into the corner, coughing, panic wild in his eyes.
We'll burn. Please, we have to move.
Front door, no choice.
Straight into the lion's jaws.
Then we make them choke on it. We make them choke on it.
They kicked the door wide. Smoke belched out into the pale dawn, and figures were waiting. Masked, guns raised, torches glaring through the haze. The Trevelyans hadn't meant to kill them with fire. They meant to herd them.
That's far enough.
You should have drowned with him. The captain stepped forward, his mask half torn, one eye swollen but burning. He'd survived the crypt. The sea hadn't kept him. Julian may have fallen, but the house still stands. Hand it over, girl. End this. Emma's chest tightened, her arms locked around the coffer. Flames roared behind them, heat pressing like a hand on their backs. In front, a line of rifles. No exits.
We can't win this.
Then we don't let them win either.
Last chance, Captain, step aside. You think a single bullet saves you? You're ashes already. All I have to do is wait. Smoke swallowed their lungs. Fire pressed close. The captain's line glared down their barrels, patient, hungry. Emma felt the locket burn so hot it seared her skin. The lens shimmered, words surfacing on the coffer in her hands.
Do not yield. The tide only turns if you stand.
Her eyes locked with Aidan's, then with Price's. The choice was before them. Hand over the truth or burn alive clutching it. And Emma knew the house had never wanted their deaths. It wanted their silence. She would never give it. Chapter 31, The Lion's Patience. The farmhouse doorway gaped behind them, belching flame and ash. Ahead, the Trevelyan captain stood at the head of his line, rifles steady, his face pale with soot and rage. Emma's chest heaved, the coffer like a stone in her arms, her skin blistering under the heat.
You're done. Give me the box, and maybe I let you crawl out of here. He's bluffing. They'll kill us the second we hand it over. Not yet. Wait.
Emma felt the locket burn against her sternum, its lens pulsing faint. Words shimmered across the coffer when she glanced down. Stand, but don't show your teeth until they bite. Her hands loosened on the iron chest, just enough for the captain to see.
You want it? Fine, take it. Just stop this.
She stepped forward into the clearing smoke, arms straining as she lifted the coffer out from her body. The captain's eyes gleamed. He raised his hand, halting his men. Wise at last. The men's rifles dipped slightly, their confidence rising as they watched Emma. Aidan's jaw tightened, his fists clenching at his sides. Price's eyes flicked to Emma, sharp, calculating.
Emma, what the hell are you?
Trust me.
She took another step, closer, until the captain was only a few paces away. His torchlight flared across her soot-smeared face, across the ledger strapped to her coat. His gaze flicked to the locket at her throat, but lingered hungrily on the box.
Place it down. All right.
She bent her knees, lowering the coffer toward the gravel. Her fingers lingered on its lid, brushing the wax-sealed edges. The lens in her locket caught the firelight, focusing it into a thin beam against the captain's boots. He didn't notice, but Emma did. Words shimmered faint on the iron. When he reaches, blind him. She glanced up through lashes, heart hammering. The captain extended a hand, greedy, ready to snatch the coffer from her. His men leaned forward, rifles lowering further. The fire behind them roared louder, heat pushing them closer into the open.
Now. Now. Now.
Her hand shifted on the locket, ready to turn the lens upward. The captain's shadow loomed long over her, one hand reaching, his sneer fixed. Aidan tensed to strike. Price steadied her aim, every nerve alight. The line between surrender and defiance had never been thinner. Chapter 32, Light Against the Lion. Emma crouched low, smoke coiling around her as the farmhouse burned behind. The captain loomed over her, hand extended, eyes gleaming with victory. His men leaned in, rifles slackening, certain the fight was won. The coffer weighed like an anchor in Emma's arms, but the locket at her chest burned hotter, demanding.
That's it. Hand it over. You were never built to carry this. Neither were you.
Her fingers flicked the locket open. The lens caught firelight, bending it into a sudden white flare. She tilted it upward, straight into the captain's face. He screamed, hands clawing at his eyes, stumbling back. The words of Lillian's script blazed across his skin, visible to all. False heir, thief of blood, murderer of truth. See him for what he is. Mano. The men faltered. Some cried out, dazzled by the sudden flare. One dropped his rifle, stumbling. Another stared at the captain's skin, the words burning ghost-like across his cheek. The line fractured.
Now,
Take them. Price fired, a clean shot dropping one of the enforcers. Aidan swung the butt of his pistol into another's jaw, sending him sprawling. Emma hurled the coffer backward into the farmhouse doorway, out of reach, forcing the loyalists to fight through flame if they wanted it. Norm. Half blind, the captain roared, swinging wildly. His fist caught Aidan across the ribs, sending him sprawling. He lunged for Emma, teeth bared, hands grasping for her throat.
you're finished.
The house never falls.
Before his hands could close, the younger enforcer shoved himself between them. His bound wrists swung upward, smashing into the captain's jaw. The crack echoed. The captain reeled, stumbling back into the firelight, his coat catching embers.
I'm done dying for your lies.
Flames caught, racing up the captain's sleeve. He shrieked, clawing at his coat, staggering into the farmhouse as the roof groaned above. The inferno swallowed him, his scream drowned by collapsing beams. The men outside faltered, fear breaking their line as smoke belched higher, flames roaring. Some fled, others froze, eyes wide at the sight of their captain vanishing into the blaze. Emma stood trembling, the lens still glowing hot against her chest, the words fading into smoke. She clutched the coffer to her body, breath ragged but steady.
The lion dies tonight.
But the fire was spreading fast, and the men who remained still barred their way to freedom. The house had lost its lion, but its claws were far from gone. Chapter 33, Sirens in the Smoke. The farmhouse collapsed in on itself, timbers screaming as fire chewed through roof beams. Smoke choked the air, sparks spitting across the yard like stars torn loose. Emma staggered back, the coffer locked in her grip, her lungs burning. Aidan hauled her upright, blood streaking his temple. The younger enforcer coughed violently, bent double, while Price held her ground, pistol raised at the last Trevelyan loyalists still standing in the yard.
Fall back or fall down, your choice.
The men hesitated, rifles wavering, their captain gone to ash, but hatred still burned in their eyes. One shouted, raising his weapon, and then the sirens came. The sound cut through smoke and fire like a blade. Blue lights flared against the mist, tires screeching over gravel. A fresh convoy of police trucks tore into the yard, uniformed officers spilling out, weapons leveled.
Drop your guns. On the ground now.
The loyalists froze. One dropped his weapon, another cursed, bolting into the hedge, but was tackled instantly by officers. Within seconds, the yard was flooded with law's cold, efficient presence. The Trevelyan assault splintered and broken. Emma collapsed to her knees, clutching the coffer as the world tilted, the fire's roar fading under the flood of boots and voices. Aidan knelt beside her, his hand steadying hers, his chest rising and falling like a war drum.
We lived.
Barely.
Two officers pulled the younger enforcer upright, binding his wrists again, though not unkindly. He didn't resist, only stared at the burning house as if seeing his own childhood going up in smoke.
The lion's dead, but the house still stands.
Not for long. Price turned to Emma, her eyes fierce in the wash of blue lights.
You keep that box closed until we choose where to open it. Not in court, not in secret, in the open. On every screen, every station. Tonight.
We'll shout it where they can't bury it.
The farmhouse crackled, its skeleton falling inward, sparks soaring into the sky. Sirens howled, engines roared, but Emma heard only the pulse of the locket against her chest, each beat whispering the same command: stand, do not hide. We won't. The dynasty had lost its lion, but its reach was long, and Emma knew the Trevelyans would strike again before they let their name fall to ash. Chapter 34, The Broadcast. Night fell hard over Cornwall, but the safe house was alive with light. Not fire this time, but screens. Cameras, cables, a humming bank of old transmitters Price had scavenged from the Cold War ruins. The farmhouse was gone, reduced to cinders, but here in Bodmin they had a chance to strike back. Emma sat at the center of it all, the ledger open before her, the coffer beside it. The younger enforcer sat off to the side, wrists free now, but under watchful eyes. Aidan crouched near the equipment, helping Price string wires, both of them grim and silent with urgency.
This is it, no more shadows.
We burn the lion's name in the light.
Price tested a microphone, her voice carrying sharp through the small speakers.
When the relay kicks, this hits every unlocked signal in the county: TV, radio, broadband. From there, it's only a matter of who shares it first. Once it's out, there's no pulling it back.
Good. They've buried truth for a century. We bury their lies in minutes. Emma sat straighter, the lens glimmering faint in the lamplight. Aidan adjusted the camera, his hands steady now despite the cuts along his knuckles.
Whenever you're ready. Emma drew a breath. Her voice trembled at first, then steadied, iron under velvet.
My name is Emma Whitaker. This box, this ledger, holds the truth of the Trevelyan family. For a century, they've bought silence, forged names, threatened lives. They murdered Lillian Trevelyan because she tried to speak. They tried to drown us for finding her words. But tonight, her voice rises again.
She held up the locket, lens flashing, then opened the coffer. Bundles of papers, dates, signatures, photographs, all spilled into the light. This is Arthur Trevelyan's own hand. Payments to priests, threats against witnesses, names bought, generations stolen, and this. She lifted Lillian's letter, the script glowing faint under the lens.
Is the truth that cost her life. The dynasty is a lie. The lion's crest drinks only blood and fear, but it ends here. We will not be silent, and neither should you.
Price gave a signal. Aidan hit the switch. The transmitters thrummed, lights flaring, signal tearing loose into the night. Somewhere, screens flickered. Kitchens, pubs, stations. Emma's voice spilling raw and unpolished into the world.
It's live.
Then so is she.
For a moment, triumph filled the room. The signal spread. Emma's words, Lillian's words, Arthur's confession, all beamed wide. But then the equipment crackled. A hiss of static. Price frowned, tapping the monitor. A warning flashed red. Interference detected.
They're trying to jam us.
Let 'em try. The battle for the Trevelyan name had left the shadows. It was on the airwaves now. Truth against dynasty, carried by fire and signal. Chapter 35. The echo that couldn't be stopped. The equipment rattled, lights stuttering as the interference surged. Static clawed through the speakers, hissing like a serpent. Emma's face flickered on the monitor, dissolving into lines. For a heartbeat, it seemed the dynasty had won, their reach choking the truth at its birth. They're cutting us off. Bastards are jamming the band. They're throwing every watt they own at us. Then why can I still hear it? Ember course. The lights steadied, the hiss warped into a chorus. Emma's voice multiplied. On the monitor, her face split into dozens of frames, repeating across channels, skipping across frequencies like wildfire. The interference hadn't buried her broadcast. It had broken the locks holding it back.
Oh my God, they bounced it. Their jamming's boosting the signal. It's going everywhere.
They just set fire to their own house.
Across Cornwall, then Devon, then beyond, pub TVs froze mid-football to Emma's face. Radios cut off mid-song to her voice. In kitchens, living rooms, taxis, her words spilled uninvited. The dynasty is a lie. The lion's crest drinks only blood and fear. But it ends here. The truth was out, and the harder the Trevelyans pressed to silence it, the louder it screamed.
She said to shout. She didn't mean just here.
The younger enforcer stood pale in the corner, eyes wide as if he were seeing a ghost walk through every screen in England.
They can't stop it now. Even if they kill you, she'll still be speaking.
That's the point. That's the point.
Outside, distant horns blared, Trevelyan loyalist convoys rallying. But this time, the crowd wasn't just theirs. Doors opened, lights flicked on, phones began to record, to share, to spread. Villagers who had bowed their heads for a century now stood in their doorways, hearing the words that had been buried in silence.
They'll come for us harder than ever, but the whole country just saw their rot. The lion's bleeding, and every scavenger will smell it.
Lillian's tide, finally turning. Emma stared at the coffer, at the ledger, at the lens still glowing faint. She felt the weight lift, not gone, never gone, but shared now, no longer hers alone.
They can burn us, they can drown us, but they'll never silence her again.
Beyond the moors, sirens rose. The dynasty would strike back, but the roar of truth was already louder. Chapter 36, The Roar of the People. By dawn, Cornwall was no longer quiet. Emma's face blazed across every screen, her words replayed in kitchens, pubs, phones, passed from hand to hand. The Trevelyan name, once spoken with reverence, now hung heavy with suspicion. The dynasty that had ruled in shadows was dragged blinking into the light.
It worked.
More than worked. It's everywhere.
In the coastal town below Trevelyan House, villagers stood in knots outside shops and cafes. Old men leaned on walking sticks, muttering about bribes they remembered but never dared speak. Women whispered about disappearances, about Lillian. For the first time, their silence cracked.
Knew they paid off the curate. My father said it back then. And no one listened. Till now.
In London, journalists sharpened their knives. The morning papers hit stands with Emma's image above the fold. Dynasty of lies, buried Ledger Rock's Cornwall family. News anchors spoke her words on air. Her voice carried wider with each hour.
If authenticated, these documents could devastate the Trevelyan line, implicating not only family members but local officials complicit in the cover-up.
But the dynasty struck back too. A statement appeared on every major channel. Lady Margaret Trevelyan, stone-faced, wrapped in black silk, her voice iron under grief.
These are fabrications, terrorism against our family, the words of a thief and a disgraced girl. The Trevelyan crest has stood for a century, and it will endure.
Yet outside the gates of the estate, protesters gathered. Banners unfurled, painted lions with bloodied teeth. Chants rose, "Truth for Lillian, truth for Cornwall." In the safe house, the 4 survivors listened to the swell of the world outside. The younger enforcer sat pale, rubbing raw wrists, half terrified, half relieved. Price stood at the window, arms folded, her jaw tight.
They'll call it lies. They'll try to spin it as treason, but the people have smelled blood. Once the mob tastes it, no crest in England can cover the stink.
And when the lions' banners fall, every scavenger will come for a bite.
Good. Let them. The more who speak, the less they can silence. Outside, horns blared, the sound of convoys moving. But now it wasn't just Trevelyan cars. Journalists, protesters, police, all converging on the house that had hidden too long. Emma held the locket close, its heat pulsing like a heartbeat. For the first time, she felt the dynasty not as untouchable stone, but as prey cornered in its lair. The lion roars loudest before it dies. And across the moors, the roar of the people was already louder. Chapter 37. The Siege of Trevelyan House. By afternoon, the gates of Trevelyan House buckled under pressure not of soldiers, but of its own people. Hundreds crowded the narrow lane, villagers with placards, students with phones aloft, old men shouting names long buried. The banners of the lions snapped overhead, but their roar was drowned by the crowd.
Truth for Lillian, truth for Cornwall.
Emma stood among them, the coffer clutched to her chest, Aidan at her side, Price a steady sentinel. The younger enforcer stayed half a pace behind, pale, hood up, but his presence didn't matter. The crowd surged around Emma like waves around a rock. Her broadcast had lit the fuse.
It's not ours anymore.
That's the point. At the gates, a line of Trevelyan guards stood tense, shields raised, batons out. Behind them, Lady Margaret Trevelyan appeared on the balcony, black silk cloak wrapped tight, her voice amplified through hidden speakers. Go home, this is our land, our house. You will not break what has stood for centuries. The crowd howled back, fury shaking the air. Stones flew, banners waved, the guards shifted nervously.
This is breaking. One spark and the whole thing blows.
Emma stepped forward. She lifted the ledger in one hand, the coffer in the other, the locket flashing against her chest. The crowd saw her, recognized her from the broadcast. A cheer ripped through the air. This is what you fear, not us, not the people. Truth. You silenced Lillian, but her words are here, her blood is here, and now her voice is on every tongue in Cornwall. The crowd roared, the guards faltered, their line thinning. One lowered his shield, then another.
They're cracking. Keep going.
Lady Margaret leaned forward, her face pale but unflinching.
You think mobs will topple dynasties? You think shouting changes blood? You are nothing. Your voice is a gust against a storm.
Then hear the storm.
She raised the lens. Firelight bent, words shimmered across the balcony wall. False heirs, murderers of truth. The crowd saw it, gasped, then shouted louder. The gates shook under their fury. Guards broke. The iron gates buckled inward, and the sea of people surged forward, carrying Emma, Aidan, and Price with them. Lady Margaret vanished from the balcony, retreating into the shadowed halls of her dynasty. Its ending here. Trevelyan House, fortress of lies, was about to be swallowed by the very voices it had silenced for generations. Chapter 38. Dragged into the lion's den. The gates cracked, and the crowd poured like a tide into the courtyard. Shouts and chants turned to thunder, fists striking iron, banners ripping down. Emma was swept with them, her boots barely touching stone. The coffer pressed so tight to her ribs she thought it might splinter. "Stay close, don't lose me."
Hold the line. Keep moving forward.
In the chaos, shadows moved faster than the crowd. Hands seized Emma from behind, rough and gloved. The coffer wrenched from her arms. She screamed, twisting, but another hand clamped over her mouth.
Emma!
A blow struck Aidan's temple. He crumpled to his knees. Price spun, gun raised, but a baton cracked her wrist, sending the weapon clattering to stone. Masked loyalists dragged them back, away from the surge of protesters, into the shadow of the archway.
No! No!
The doors slammed behind them, shutting out the roar of the people. The air turned colder, thick with dust and incense. Stone corridors stretched long and dim, lined with portraits whose painted eyes seemed to sneer. Emma stumbled as they shoved her forward, wrists bound, the coffer now in enemy hands. Aidan limped beside her, blood matting his hair, fury burning in his eyes. Price walked stiff, jaw set, one hand cradling her broken wrist.
Cowards, hiding behind walls when the people are at your gates.
Better behind walls than under their boots. They were shoved into a vast hall, stone flags polished by centuries of power. At its head sat Lady Margaret Trevelyan, composed as stone, silk cloak, unruffled despite the chaos outside. The coffer rested at her feet like a chained animal.
At last, the thieves return home.
We're not thieves. We're the voice you buried.
And voices can be silenced. Again.
The roar of the crowd still echoed faintly beyond the walls, muffled but relentless. Lady Margaret's eyes flicked toward the windows, then back to Emma.
They'll tear these gates down within the hour, but you will not live to see it. The lion devours before it dies.
Then I'll choke it from the inside. Guards pressed them down to their knees. The coffer gleamed at Lady Margaret's feet. The ledger ripped from Aidan's coat and dropped beside it. The truth they had fought for, bled for, stolen from tide and fire, now back in the lion's jaws. You can kill me, but you'll never kill her words. Lady Margaret's smile was thin, cruel, as the roar of the crowd grew louder outside the stone walls. The dynasty's last act had begun. Chapter 39. The breaking of the house. The hall quaked under the roar of the crowd outside. Emma knelt on the stone floor, wrists bound, her chest heaving, the locket burning against her throat. The coffer and ledger sat at Lady Margaret's feet, the dynasty's truth boxed neatly again, ready to be buried one last time.
You thought you could unmake us with words, but power is not ink, girl. It is blood, land, lineage, and you have none. Then watch what happens when the people take it from you.
A crash split the hall, wood splintering, iron twisting. The great doors buckled inward. Shouts surged, a wave of voices crashing against the stone walls. Smoke and torchlight poured in as the crowd broke through, their fury filling the house like floodwater.
They're in.
Your storm just found its way inside, lady. The loyalist guards faltered, rifles raised but hands shaking as the mob pressed closer. Villagers poured into the hall, faces alight with rage and grief. Some held banners, some held nothing but fists, but their roar drowned out the dynasty's silence. Emma surged forward, straining against her binds, voice carrying across the chaos. Here's your proof. Their lies, their crimes, their blood. She thrust her locket toward the coffer. The lens flared, projecting words across the high stone walls. Lillian's script unfurled in burning light. False heirs, murderers, a house built on bones. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cries turned into chants.
Truth for Lillian. Truth for Cornwall.
Lady Margaret rose, cloak sweeping, eyes still cold as ice, even as her world crumbled.
You dare defile this house.
No, you defiled it. We're just dragging the bones into the light. Protesters surged forward, overwhelming the last of the loyalists. Shields fell, batons clattered to stone. Emma felt hands haul her upright, ropes cut free, the coffer pressed back into her arms. She stood tall for the first time in the Trevelyan Hall, the locket glowing at her chest, the crowd's roar rising like a tide.
The lion's reign is over.
Lady Margaret's voice was lost in the swell, her figure swallowed by the press of bodies. The great house shook with more than protest. It shook with collapse. Centuries of silence cracking at last. Emma gripped the coffer and ledger, the locket blazing, her vow carrying clear above the chaos. Lillian, your truth lives, and they'll never bury it again. The dynasty had fallen to its knees, but Emma knew every fallen house leaves ruins, and ruins can still bleed. Chapter 40. Ashes and Silence. Dawn touched Trevelyan House with pale light. Smoke curled from broken windows, banners torn and trampled in the courtyard below. The lion's crest lay shattered where the mob had dragged it down, its gilded teeth scattered on the stones. The roar of protest had ebbed into murmurs, then into silence. What remained was aftermath, raw, heavy, undeniable. Emma sat on the cold steps of the hall, the coffer at her side, the ledger across her lap. Her hands trembled, though not from fear. They trembled because the fight was over, and she was still alive.
Never thought I'd see the day. The House of Lions brought down by a voice.
Not just mine, hers.
Di Price stood near the gates, shouting orders to exhausted officers who were gathering names, evidence, testimony from the crowd. The younger enforcer sat apart, head bowed, wrists now unbound. He watched the ruin of the estate with hollow eyes, as though seeing his whole life crack and crumble before him.
It was never ours, it was theirs, and now it's nothing.
Now it can be something better if you stand in the open, not the shadows.
Emma opened the coffer one last time. Papers rustled, damp with sea salt, but intact. She touched Lillian's script, traced the curves of her handwriting, felt the weight of a woman long gone who had chosen to risk everything.
We didn't bury you, we brought you home. The lens shimmered faint, words glowing across the page. Truth endures. Then the light faded.
The crowd began to disperse, drifting back into the village with tired steps and voices hoarse from shouting. Trevelyan House loomed hollow now, its windows empty eyes, its power broken. The lion had roared for the last time. Emma rose, coffer in her arms, locket warm against her skin. She turned to Aidan, her voice steady despite the weight in her chest. We don't stop here. If one house can bury truth for a century, others can too. We keep digging. Together. They walked from the broken gates into the dawn, carrying the truth with them, not just in the coffer, not just in the ledger, but in every voice that had risen that night. The lion's house was fallen, but the tide of truth had only begun.
Lillian will keep shouting.
And for the first time, the silence of Cornwall was not fear, but peace. End of Book 2, Buried Hearts. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.